Buckle up, boys. Time to go to work.
This has happened before.
At number 24, the Packers proudly step to the podium
Dan Patrick
and take the successor to Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers.
History just repeated itself.
Yeah, we haven't picked a skill player in the first round in the last 15 years, so that'd be kind of cool.
And then all of a sudden, they drop the bomb.
The Green Bay Packers select Jordan Love, quarterback, Utah State.
Well, you got your skill position player. He's called a quarterback.
The Dan Patrick Show brings you the biggest guests and best interviews.
Chris Sims, his job is to analyze the draft, and he is brutally honest.
Brett Favre was threatening to retire. This to me smells a lot like John Elway and Maddox, who they drafted out of UCLA back in the early 90s, where, I don't know if this team's going to get anything out of this pick, and some other team might bear the fruits of his talent at some point.
Broadcasting from the Mercedes Man Cave, this is Dan Patrick.
Hope you had a great weekend, safe weekend. Welcome in. Stay a while if you can. Dan and the Danettes, Dan Patrick Show. A lot to talk about. Peter King will stop by. Reggie Miller, final hour of the program. We'll check in with Pro Football Focus and their draft analyst, Mike Renner, who had some great opinions over the weekend following the 3 days of the NFL draft. We'll explore the draft, some of the good, some of the bad, some of the ugly. Also, you had parts 3 and 4 of the Bulls documentary. We'll talk about the brilliance, the genius of Dennis Rodman. Coming up, the New Orleans Saints are going to sign Jameis Winston to a 1-year deal. They're locking up Taysom Hill, what looks like to be a 2 or 3 year deal. Not quarterback money, but pretty good money for a multi-purpose player. We'll talk about that coming up with Peter King as well. You can watch, if you like, youtube.com/The Dan Patrick Show. You can also listen, if you'd like, 362 radio affiliates around the country, including the Fox Sports Radio lineup. McLovin's job is to come up with a poll question. We got a couple of stats of the day. We got a play of the day coming up as well. The first ever virtual NFL draft was a hit, a big hit. They're already talking about using some of these elements as they move forward with future drafts, and the ratings obviously didn't suffer. People were looking for something to watch, anything to watch. First and second day set records for viewership, and you show the executive, you show coaches, you show players at home, and it humanized these people. It provided a lot of fun content, and people were picking apart the home decor of the players and the coaches and the GMs. And some writers suggested doing the draft like this every year moving forward. I disagree with that. It's a novel approach, but this called for this because of what we're going through. This wasn't somebody who said, hey, let's do this. This was a necessity. I can't imagine next year in LA or the following year in Vegas, you're going to do this and not really kind of explore what Vegas and Los Angeles are all about. You want that pomp and circumstance. This was great. The draft has changed since they moved it out of Radio City Music Hall. Took over cities like Philadelphia and Nashville, did a wonderful job. And I'm sure there's going to be compromises here. You can take the best parts of both formats, but either way, the draft will go down as a bright spot in NFL history. The commissioner and everybody in front of the camera, behind the scenes, did a wonderful job with this. The draft delivered both in abundance, entertainment and some optimism there. But I can't see moving forward where, hey, we're in Vegas. Remember, Vegas was going to have a boat. They were going to have gondolas taking the players to the stage. They had canals that they were going to use. That was the opposite of what we had. I liked it. It did humanize Belichick at home with his dog. You had the setup with Cliff Kingsbury, Mike Vrabel, kids, pets. You had the draft picks at home with their family. I like it. You can incorporate that. I would love it if we had the capability, the technology, to be able to give you a screen of all of the war rooms. Now, you couldn't hear it, but you could pick your war room, and you could just watch that. Now, you could also have the split screen where you have the commissioner, you have the draft picks, you have videos, whatever that is, you could do that. But you could pick your draft room, your war room there, and I think that would be entertaining. I did like the fact that you had these, front office people or coaches or players in their element with their families, and I think as we move forward, you'll incorporate some of that. But if that's all you were showing and you're not showing, the red carpet and you're not showing what Vegas is going to look like when they roll this out, what they're going to do with the new stadium and the rollout in Los Angeles, I think we like this because we were hungry for anything. You could have shown anything, and I think we would have been fine with it. But I can't imagine as we move forward where you go, okay, that's what the draft is going to be. The network wants to show, bells and whistles here. They want to have people in locations. They want to have beautiful pictures there. They weren't able to do that. You got creative lighting on Bristol, Connecticut in the ESPN headquarters. Like, that was the glam shot. Now, we did get some, Cliff Kingsbury with his home. But other than that, nobody really had a tricked out place. I like the simplicity of Belichick there. And I think the dog made the pick. I started to think, did the dog hit a button? Did, Bill put him up there, and all of a sudden did the dog, with his paw, click on something, and then they drafted the kid out of Lenore Ryan? And I thought that was his name. They drafted Lenore Ryan. Oh, that's right. There is a college called Lenore Ryan. I liked it. It was fun. It was well done. I thought Reese Davis, Trey Wingo, to be able to navigate the traffic that you have there just on the draft by itself without this pandemic is hard to do. And they were able to do it seamlessly. Anybody want to keep the draft the way it was? What we saw this weekend as we move forward, that's what you want to see. Any of the Danettes want to see this as we move forward? I liked it, but I liked it as a one-off. Yeah, Seton.
Yeah, I think that there's some elements of it you can keep, but I don't want it to be that stripped down. That was a little too basic.
Yeah. Paulie?
I do like a handful of draftees from home, but they've always done that. They have draftees on the site, what if they have it in Vegas, but they'll have draftees at home. You can see the home reaction. So as long as they keep that part of it. But as far as Belichick at home, that was perfect. That looks like what we would do doing a fantasy football draft. You pick, you jump up, you walk around your house, you go back, you pick.
Yeah, McLovin.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Paulie. It was interesting to see the GMs and their kids, but I love the Nashville and the Philly, the pomp, and I think the economic reasons are valid too. Isn't that a lot of money to those cities?
Oh, sure. Yeah. And it will be for Los Angeles with that new stadium, and then, of course, Vegas when they get their opportunity. All right, 877-3DP Show, email address dp@danpatrick.com, Twitter handle at DP Show. McLevin's got a poll question or two. There were a couple of surprises, not many surprises. Remember, leading up to the draft, we had a couple analysts say, there's going to be a lot of trades. I don't think you had a lot of trades because of this virtual draft setup. I think that played a large role in this, that teams were a little bit more cautious in what they were doing. And they locked in on who they wanted, and they did their damnedest to get that pick. You saw some outliers, which we'll talk about. The Eagles taking Jalen Hurts. What happened with the Packers with Jordan Love. But I think there were some GMs who were frustrated that they were trying to make picks and they couldn't do it. What do you have, McLevin?
So, yeah, I had a question. What is the biggest surprise? The Packers taking quarterback in the first round, no wide receivers. The Eagles taking Jalen Hurts in the second round. I don't know if it's a surprise, but Jameis Winston signing with the Saints.
I'm fine with Jameis Winston signing with the Saints. I think it's
you like
really,
that?
Yes, I think it's a very good move. I got Sean Payton and I've got Drew Brees. I don't need him to play, but when he does play, I want him to make better decisions. We all know he has great talent. He doesn't make good decisions. With Sean Payton and Drew Brees, no more excuses. If you can't learn with them, then you're not going to learn the position. I'm fine with that. Jalen Hurts with the Eagles, I get it. This isn't about, hey, the Eagles are looking at maybe their Taysom Hill. I think they're looking at their quarterback and Carson Wentz. To me, this is more about Carson Wentz than it is we want to find our Taysom Hill as well, or our Lamar Jackson. I think I like Jalen Hurts. I wish that he would have gone to a team where he would have been the eventual successor in maybe 2 years. But he might be playing because of the way Carson Wentz plays. I like what the Eagles did in getting Jalen Hurts. Nate Sudfeld is not going to scare anybody. I think Jalen Hurts has the ability to come in and put some pressure on a defense if he has to, But I think Carson Wentz played every game last year. So maybe he's getting smarter, but he has to. Yes, McLovin.
I got to tell you, Philly was ready to burn down Lincoln Financial Field. They were irate. The fans went ballistic.
Stop. You got your wide receiver in the first round, which you needed that, and you got it. This was a value pick, and you got Jalen Hurts, and you got what I think is a really good backup quarterback, to start the season.
They took a wide receiver that no one expected them to take, Jalen Reagor, instead of the one that everyone knew, Jefferson from LSU.
I know.
But then again, they booed McNabb in '98.
I know. Look, we don't know. We don't know. It's like when they go, oh, you know what? We're going to bring in Nick Foles. Nick Foles, he can't play. He nearly retired. How did that work out? And I was there at the McNabb draft when they booed him. I went, God, they don't even know this guy. Donovan McNabb is a borderline Hall of Famer. No, we want those shiny objects that we know. Their job is to find the right person, not, hey, you guys don't know who this guy is. Well, then he can't be any good. That's not always the case. We know that. There are just so many situations where we go, who's that guy? Who's Russell Wilson? Wait, Dak Prescott? That's why when it comes to draft picks, when you see what you're doing, the team and what they're doing, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm assuming you got guys who spent a lot of time on that player or the player you're not going to take. Yeah, Paul.
Dan, I went back and looked at some old drafts and draft grades today, and you're exactly right. When Russell Wilson was drafted, people said, that makes no sense. You just spent a bunch of money on Matt Flynn in the offseason. That's a wasted draft pick. When Kirk Cousins was drafted by the Redskins, that makes no sense. In the first round, you took a quarterback, and you take one in the fourth, get him a lineman or a tight end. Same thing with different Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
Like Tony Romo's in his prime. You don't need a quarterback.
Yeah, that's why when it comes to the reaction, overreaction, and you guys remember when Dallas Cowboy fans wanted Johnny Manziel. Not Zach Martin, not a Hall of Famer. You wanted Johnny Manziel because you knew Johnny Manziel. We like when our teams draft somebody we know. Then you get the Packers with Jordan Love. Now, I told you on Friday why I didn't like it for a couple of reasons. Now, I was letting it soak in. I was going to let it simmer a little bit and go, okay, maybe I have a different approach here. Maybe I'm going to feel differently about this. No, I feel worse about this if I'm a Packer fan for the following reason. You traded up for Jordan Love. Now, I told you that I found out, my source said the Colts were going to take Jordan Love. They ended up taking a quarterback in Jacob Eason out of Washington. They were going to take, from what I was told, they were taking Jordan Love. That's where the Packers wanted to go up and get him. Why? Maybe they think he's the next Patrick Mahomes. I have a problem with it. If you're going to look at the Green Bay Packers and say, well, you got the greatest quarterback, why can't he make these wide receivers great? Tom Brady did this. The reason why the Packers didn't go to the Super Bowl was because of their defense, not their offense. Now, do I think they were a legitimate 13-3 team? I do not. In fact, the entire season, I even said on the show numerous times, I don't know how good the Packers are. And I still don't. I think they're more of a 10 or 11 win team. They won 13. They could have gone to the Super Bowl. The reason why they didn't, their defense. That's what they needed to shore up. Now, you can say, did they do a good job in that? Well, we can discuss that as well. If you're taking Jordan Love, you just signed up Aaron Rodgers. He's got 4 years left. So if I look at the financials here, what are you going to do? Trade him? Cut him? Is Rodgers leaving in the next 2 years? And I'm going to say probably not. 3 years? Maybe. The reason why you draft a quarterback in the first round is you get to have that rookie contract. So I'm going to take Jordan Love. The first 3 years of that team-friendly contract, he's not playing. Then we get to the fourth year. Will he be playing then? What if we get to the 5th year where you've taken him and you've just wasted the 5-year window to have a quarterback who doesn't make achingly painful money for the salary cap? Right? Look at what Alex Smith did for the Chiefs, and the Chiefs said, we can get Mahomes. He sits for 1 year. Not one. And they win a Super Bowl because they have a team-friendly contract. That's why it doesn't make any sense for Jordan Love. Now, we can all sit here and go, well, but if he's a Pro Bowl quarterback and he's your quarterback for the next 10 years, he's not going to be my quarterback for the next 4 years. What I want out of that quarterback is immediate dividends. Joe Burrow plays right away. Tua sits for 1 year. Justin Herbert probably sits for 1 year. Now I have a team-friendly contract. Jordan Love, he's not sitting for 1. He's not sitting for 2. Maybe the 3rd year you get Jordan Love in there. Maybe. That's best case scenario. That's why I didn't agree. You trade up. You could use defensive help. If you're going to trade up for somebody who helps you now on a 13-3 team, unless management went, we're really not that good. We got a lot of holes here. You found a running back. Your wide receivers are, aside from Devontae Adams, they're okay. That's not a ringing endorsement there. But I got Aaron Rodgers. Your defense was poor. Your defense hurt you. And the Niners ran all over you. If that's who, teams would always build their team in accordance to how they matched up with the Patriots. If I'm the Packers, how do we match up with the Niners, who, by the way, got even better? They did. Scary. I think Baltimore got better. And I'm talking about, the elite teams getting better. Baltimore got better, but San Francisco got a steal in Trent Williams. So you have Joe Staley retire, and they go get Trent Williams. Crazy. Get a wide receiver, trade DeForest Buckner, you get defensive line. Like John Lynch did a good job. And that's the difference. The San Francisco 49ers got better. Green Bay didn't get better. They got different, but they didn't get better, in my opinion. You didn't take any wide receivers. In a wide receiver-heavy draft, you didn't take one. Okay. Is your defense going to be formidable? And if it is, then maybe this works out. Baltimore got better. Dobbins, Ingram, I think, is 30, so you got a guy, another running back in there. I love Patrick Queen. You got a talented defensive player as well. But, when people talk about a draft and they give you a grade, your draft is an entire draft, not just the first 2 picks. We focus on the first and second rounds. Drafts are won and lost after that. And I was also looking at the Vikings. Whether the Vikings had 12 picks on the last day? Like an expansion team has 12 picks, not a team that's a playoff team. Those guys aren't going to. Why not take 12 picks and narrow and package that to get 3 picks? Because 3 picks, I can get guys who will play. 12 picks, they're not going to play on a playoff caliber team. Didn't understand that philosophy at all. Take the 12 and move up and get 2 great players instead of a bunch of bodies. And plus you have the offseason that's not an offseason. You're not even going to give them a chance to make the team. But if I trade those picks up and I get some guys who are going to play, that to me was the smart choice. All right. Come up with a poll question here. We'll talk to Mike Renner, Pro Football Focus. Fritzy said, you got to look at these opinions with Mike Renner. He did a great job. It was just, there's no bias there. He just gives you a draft grade. And he'll tell you why he doesn't like the Chargers and what they did. Doesn't like what they did with Justin Herbert. And he had some thoughts prior to the draft on the Chargers should have gone all the way up to 3. You know who had another good draft? The Lions. And it's rare when we say that about the Lions. I thought the Lions did well. Really did well. All right, we'll take a break. We'll talk some football. We got some phone calls. We got Reggie Miller a little later on. And we got a lot of topics to dive into. 20 after the hour, just getting started on this Monday. Dan and the Danettes, Dan Patrick Show. checking things all the time. You check your email, your Instagram, but make sure you check something really important like your credit. Discover makes it quick and easy, and it's free. Discover's now offering FICO credit scores, and that's the score used by 90% of top lenders. And you can do that for free, even if you're not a customer. Checking your score won't hurt your credit. You can check each month for changes. The Discover Credit Scorecard. It's free for everyone. Learn more at discover.com/credit scorecard. Limitations apply. Do you want to read your draft profile? Just some of the comments here.
No. What do you know?
Yeah, we just have it right there, McLovin. You're coming out of Purdue, and these are some of the things said about you. Now, granted, there were some positives, but
from scouts.
Yes, scouts, actual scouts.
Right. These are guys that know what they're talking about.
But these are unedited comments about
here we go.
Drew Brees.
So tends to sidearm his passes going deep. Okay. Lacks accuracy and touch on his long throws. Seems more comfortable in the short intermediate passing attack. Well, that's the whole design of the spread offense.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Does not possess the ideal height you look for in a pro passer.
There we go.
Oh, what?
There we go.
I didn't think that was coming. Though his ability to scan the field helps him compensate in this area. Okay, so I've got something to...
positive.
Yeah. Will improvise and run when the passing lanes are clogged, but tends to run through defenders rather than trying to avoid them to prevent unnecessary punishment. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, when you look, Dan, when you look like this,
yeah.
I mean, why just,
I get you and Cam Newton mixed up when you start to run.
Yeah. I mean, why try to juke the guy when you can truck him? You know what I'm saying? I mean, give the fans what they want to see,
You got any other ones in there? You got one at the bottom there? Is there? Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't get crushed too much.
No, I didn't. It was just, the sidearm and lacks accuracy, and he's too short, and then he's just ultra physical and wants to truck people as opposed to juke them. That's always been my MO since I was a kid.
You recruited Michael Jordan and James Worthy, a lot of these, historical players at North Carolina. But at what point, when you're watching as an assistant coach for the great Dean Smith, do you look at Jordan and have a conversation with Dean and you go, holy smokes, he's so much better than I thought?
Well, it went on for 15 years. I mean, the first time I ever saw Michael Jordan, it was our camp, and I was in Carmichael at that time running an afternoon session, and Eddie Fogler, another assistant, asked me that night at dinner before we had the large meeting with the entire camp and camp staff. He said, "You see anybody you liked?" And I said, "I think I just saw the best 6'4" high school player I've ever seen." And that was my remark after seeing Michael the first time. And yet he was better the next year, and he was better the next year, and he was better the next year.
But why didn't Dean let him go?
Oh, Danny, come on. You're too smart for that. Jesus. He did let him go. Michael, every time Michael's been asked that question, he says, because he made me concentrate on the fundamentals, I was able to expand my game.
Okay, so that's a myth then.
It's a stupid myth. You're not in the stupid category. Try this. In 1982, we had James Worthy, Michael Jordan, Sam Perkins. Guess how many times we scored over 80 points in the games? I think it's like 5 or 4.
Yeah.
But there was no clock, so people held the ball on us. It's those guys. And then when James was gone, we still had Michael and Sam, and there was still a clock, and people held the ball. They double teamed him in the whole bit. But seriously, I mean, every time Michael's asked that question, he said he never felt like he was held back. People said that he didn't score 20. Well, he did average 20. But the bottom line is that Coach made him a much more fundamentally sound player, and it's like the guy with the great golf swing, like yours, I'm sure. Then once you've got the great swing, you can expand and try the flop shot. You can try all the other things. But Coach Smith made sure that Michael had the solid base, that he was so fundamentally sound, and he just got better and better. I mean, he was I've never seen a guy that I thought was as good as anybody I'd ever seen, the best 6'4" high school player I'd ever seen, and 5 years later he was 10 times better, and 5 years later he was 10 times better. None of us ever saw what he was going to do, and we thought he was going to be great, but nobody saw what. I mean, that boy just worked his butt off.
Dan Patrick Show brought to you by LegalZoom. No matter what happens, you want to make sure your loved ones are taken care of. That's why LegalZoom has made it easy to set up the right estate plan. You don't even have to leave your home. Take care of your family today. The right estate plan at LegalZoom.com. Michael in Michigan joins us. Hey, Mike, what do you have for me today?
ADP, first time, long time, 6 foot, a meaty 215. I want to talk to you about this Packers pick, man. I've been sitting for 3 days just hearing everyone talk about the Packers and Jordan Love and, oh, my God, what they do. Honestly, man, I got to tell you, who's our backup quarterback for when Rodgers goes down? Longtime Packer fan. I've seen a lot of Super Bowl runs shut down because we lose Rodgers.
Well,
we got nothing
okay.
to go back in behind there.
All right, here you go, Michael. Thank you for the phone call. If that's the case, then bring in Andy Dalton or bring in Cam Newton or bring in Jameis Winston. If you're worried about who's our backup quarterback, I just didn't like the Jordan Love pick. You went up to get him. He's not going to play for at least 3 years. You want that team-friendly rookie quarterback contract. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And I know he might be the next Patrick Mahomes. We keep hearing that. You needed to shore up your defense because the Niners gouged you, ran all over you. And you were a win away from the Super Bowl. I don't know. Mike Renner, Pro Football Focus lead draft analyst, and did a great job in summing up the draft. He had great opinions there, and Mike joins us now. Mike, good morning. Let me start with the Jordan Love trade. Explain it. Tell me the good of the Packers taking Jordan Love.
Well, the good is, with the rest of their draft, I think that ended up being their best pick, actually. So the good is that he has the tools. Like the Patrick Mahomes comparison that everyone wants to make, it's not fair to him. He doesn't necessarily have that level of ability or even that level of performance at college, but he has that natural arm talent. You saw it on his tape at Utah State. We track these things called big time throws here at PFF, which are special downfield throws with accuracy. He was still top 5 in the nation last year in that category, despite playing with not a lot of talent around him at Utah State. So that's what you fall in love with him. The pick, though, I can't get on board with it. The national media, no one seems to be able to get on board with it just because of Aaron Rodgers, 4 years left on his contract. Jordan Love, up and down over the course of his career, almost as many picks as touchdowns last year. You better be right about this evaluation if you're Brian Gutekunst, or else you just drafted a guy who didn't even play at a big school, wasn't even good last year, to usurp Aaron Rodgers there.
Do you like Jordan Love better than Justin Herbert?
I'll say I'd rather come away from the first round with Jordan Love than Justin Herbert because I think he can get to that level. Like, I think his ceiling could be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Justin Herbert, for as much as, the big arm that evaluators fall in love with and looks the part, looks great in shorts, he didn't have that level of, downfield accuracy or level of accuracy just in general. Now, he operated the offense there at Oregon State a little bit better. He's a little bit more capable right at the moment. But he's the same guy we saw as a sophomore at Oregon. His grade actually peaked sophomore year. The things you wanted to see improve, more throws with touch, more, improve accuracy, more command of the offense, you didn't see over the course of his career. So usually when guys are 4-year stars in college, you like it. But the fact that he didn't get any better is almost a negative in our eyes.
What should the Chargers have done?
They should have moved up. I mean, quite frankly, I thought going in that was their plan. They were going to move up to get Tua Tagovailoa, because they need people to fill that stadium. They're laughing stock of the NFL, not filling out an MLS stadium. They need to sell tickets, sell season tickets there. Tua is the guy that moves the needle personality-wise, with what he's done and the stats he had at Alabama. I think he's a much, much better quarterback prospect. I can't see how you could evaluate both of them and not come to that conclusion. So I don't know what it would have taken for them to move up. I don't think it would have taken that much because, anyone they would have moved up with would have gotten the same guy. So Crazy to me that they didn't and stuck and got Herbert.
When you look at your draft strategy, when you apply these grades, how do you come up with your formula that you're going to give somebody an A or an A plus or give somebody a C minus?
So that part is not as scientific as some of the draft board. Actually, that one's more a little subjective. I'll say.
Okay.
But we do. It is based on where we valued them on our draft board, and more so what we factor into our draft board that a lot of people might not is the positional value that you're getting with these picks. If you're drafting a running back in the second round, you're just not going to recoup your value the way you could with, say, a cornerback, with a pass rusher or something at that point in the draft. So that's one thing we factor in heavily here at Pro Football Focus.
But you have the Chiefs taking a running back at the end of the first round, and it's not who they take, it's when they take him, because then the Lions take Swift in the second round. So which one's smarter? Or explain your philosophy on that.
So running backs, the biggest thing is, I mean, the Chiefs saw it themselves. You got a guy off the street who was damn near Super Bowl MVP, because what matters at the running back position in terms of production is not necessarily skill level. Like the evaluation of the skill level is one of the least important things in terms of how many yards per carry they get and how productive your rushing offense is. It's much more play calling. It's much more the quality of your offensive line that matters to those things. So the success or not success of your running game, the running back's a small cog in that puzzle. And the fact of the matter is there's just a lot of guys who are dynamic running threats at the position. There's a lot of running backs who are talented. And so that's why you see a guy like Philip Lindsay go as a UDFA and have a higher yards per carry over the first 2 years of his career than Saquon Barkley, who went number 2 overall. That's a fact of life in the NFL. And so we don't want to be taking the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. We think he's that good. We think that passing offense is that dynamic that if you draft a guy in the first round, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you almost have to give him carries to justify that pick, and that's taking the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands.
All right, well, then using that philosophy or those opinions, if I go back, obviously Leonard Fournette then is a bad draft pick for Jacksonville, no matter what he did. Saquon Barkley is a draft pick for the Giants, considering where they took him?
I believe so, and it's the opportunity cost, what you gave up with a number 2 overall pick. You could have drafted guys, and I'm trying to think back to that draft who was all on the board. You could have drafted, obviously, a quarterback.
Well, Quentin Nelson.
You could have drafted a guard in Quentin Nelson. And you look at the Colts' offensive and their rushing game over the past 2 years has been better than the Giants' rushing game over the past 2 years, because that offensive line is what matters to the running game. And also when you invest in that offensive line and draft those guys up front, it also has an added effect to the passing game, because the best run blockers are also usually the best pass protectors. So that's where I'm going to invest if I do want to improve my running game.
There were a couple of teams that I liked with what they did, and then I sort of changed my opinion after I read what Pro Football Focus was talking about. Did the Ravens have a good draft? Felt like the Cowboys had a good draft. I like what the Lions did. I'm still got a question mark with the Dolphins, because I got a question with Tua and even Austin Jackson, who they took later in the first round as a project. So grade my grade.
I will say the Dolphins, they win just because Tua Tagovailoa at number 5 is a slam dunk. And any other year, he doesn't have the hip, whatever, he goes number 1 overall. Joe Burrow doesn't exist. We're talking about him as the number 1 overall pick right now. So that getting him at 5th, when usually a guy like that goes either 1st or 2nd in every single draft, is a massive win for them, not having to trade up. The Austin Jackson pick, first round is not where you take projects on the offensive tackle position, because athletic tools at offensive tackle don't necessarily translate. We look at combine data. The combine data at the offensive tackle position is not nearly as predictive to future success as it is for a lot of other positions. So you can chase guys who have the athleticism. That doesn't mean they're going to be good pros. And Austin Jackson, his tape at USC was not great. I mean, he got beaten a lot, especially look at the bowl game against Iowa and AJ Epinesa, 3 sacks he allowed that game. So not great there. So you go back and forth. Still a good draft getting your franchise quarterback, though. The Ravens is the one where, yes, love the linebacker pick and some of the ones later on, but they had Gus Edwards averaging 5.5 yards per carry. A UDFA, going back to that running back conversation, didn't necessarily need to get a J.K. Dobbins there. I'm not sure what he brings to the table that they didn't necessarily already have. So
the Cowboys, though,
just a little lower.
I like what the Cowboys did. I think it was a smart, Jerry usually has that. Jerry, the owner, has the temptation to do something crazy. It felt like Jerry, the GM, and Jerry, the owner, were on the same page.
I love the Cowboys draft. One of the 4 A pluses we gave out was Dallas's. And the CeeDee Lamb pick, while it may seem decadent to get that third receiver in there, Mike McCarthy uses 3 wide receivers. That was like his MO in Green Bay, was he never took those 3 receivers off the field. It was like 90+% of their snaps. So that means CeeDee Lamb's a starter. And that means from day one, he's going to be playing for them. And we had him as the 6th overall player in this draft class. We love that pick. And then to get Trayvon Diggs in the 2nd round, the Alabama cornerback, 2nd longest wingspan of any cornerback in this draft class. He only allowed 160 yards all season long, outside of that LSU game that everyone remembers from him getting torched. But the rest of the year, he dominated. People thought they might have taken him in the 1st round, took him all the way in the 2nd. So to slam dunk those 1st and 2nd round picks at valuable positions in our eyes, Cowboys, one of the best drafts.
Okay, so Cowboys get an A+. Did you give the Dolphins an A+?
I did not. I can't remember off the top of my head what I gave the Dolphins. Let's see.
Who else got A+?
Other A+ were the Cleveland Browns. They got 3 guys. Their first 3 picks were top 75 or top 25 players on our draft board in Jordan Elliott, Grant Delpit, and Jedrick Wills there in the 1st round. Also, the Arizona Cardinals, who got Isaiah Simmons in the 1st, Josh Jones in the 3rd, which in my opinion was the steal of the draft, the Houston offensive tackle. We have him as the 14th player on our draft board. They needed offensive line help, thought they'd go there in the 1st round. To get that guy in the 3rd was crazy. And you got to factor in the DeAndre Hopkins trade, like a 2nd round pick to flip that into DeAndre Hopkins. Massive win for them. And then the last A+ for us was the, off the top of my head, I'm blanking here, Denver Broncos. And so Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, they had a theme of this draft, and that was to get Drew Lock the weapons he needs, the speed he needs, and then also Albert O at tight end, who ran a 4.49. They're gonna go toe to toe with the Kansas City Chiefs in terms of speed and out in the AFC West, and give Drew Lock every chance he needs to succeed there.
The worst grade that you handed out was
the Green Bay Packers, and like I said, for Jordan Love to be their best selection was crazy to me. If I would have told you that after the first day, you would have said I was dead wrong. But then they draft a backup running back, mind you, in the 2nd round, and a fullback in the 3rd round. They drafted like it was 1989.
It was good stuff, Mike. I really enjoyed reading it, and we appreciate you coming on.
For sure, Dan. Thanks for having me on.
It's Mike Renner, Pro Football Focus lead draft analyst. And you start to read these analysis, you're starting to read and you hear grades, and then you're like, all right, what are they basing this on? And then you get their information and what they've been, what they program, what they put into their computers. And so you may not agree with all of it, but I found it interesting with the Chargers should have moved up, that Justin Herbert is not in the same category as Jordan Love. Didn't like the Jordan Love trade. Cowboys did well. Broncos are basically saying, we see your... it's a copycat league. We see your formula in Kansas City, and we're going to try to match that. And that's what they did, bringing in these wide receivers there. Baltimore taking a running back. Dobbins is, a great running back, but does it make sense to take a running back? The Cowboys or the Packers had a running back, and then you take a running back, and then you're taking a fullback. Like, they're just things that, and look, I could sound silly in a couple of years when we look back and go, yeah, weren't you the one that didn't like Jordan Love? He may be great. He may be. But by the time he's great, he's going to be ready to sign a contract that's going to pay him $40 million a year. He's not helping you win in the next 2 years or 3 years, unless you go, well, Rodgers is injury prone. Okay. That's it. Carson Wentz is injury prone. But all I would do is get a high-end backup instead of using that draft pick on a quarterback that I don't think is going to help me in the next couple of years. If you can get Andy Dalton to be the backup quarterback, to me, that makes more sense than it does using a first-round draft pick where you trade up on a quarterback who will not help you in the next couple of years. Play of the Day is up next. Your phone calls as well. We'll settle on a poll question. Peter King will join us coming up next hour. Reggie Miller in the final hour of the program. Dan and the Danettes, Dan Patrick Show.
Guys, I thought it was pretty fun this weekend watching the draft. Our favorite parts were, Cliff Kingsbury's house, the different coaches, the kids, the different setups at home. But one of the things that went over very well was Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner, wearing a T-shirt for the later rounds of the draft. Shockingly, Roger Goodell, who gets complimented for almost nothing, got complimented by a lot of people for doing this. He looked like what the NFL commissioner looked like. He's in pretty good shape. Looks like he could, kick some ass. now I think this should catch on, and commissioners should no longer wear suits. Adam Silver should wear maybe not shorts, but warm-ups, like he's always ready to get in the game, like a full NBA warm-up. A baseball, Rob Manfred, he could wear the managers wear the sweatshirts, but stirrups, the whole thing, eye black. What do you think? NFL commissioner, he should wear a T-shirt or Under Armour or whatever it is.
No, why treat these guys who get drafted later? They get one moment. They may not even make a team. The guys who are in the first round, get him where he's dressed up or he's at least got a sport coat on. They're going to make it in the NFL. They're going to get paid.
So the
these
T-shirt,
guys, you got a T-shirt.
It's a slap in the face?
Yes. Dress up. Put a sport coat on. If anything, put a Tampa Bay T-shirt on. Or Beer Here T-shirt. There
you go.
Come on.
What do you guys think?
Lifetime of Sundays.
He did go through a couple of wardrobe changes, even in the first round, though. If you remember, he went from blazer to sweater, which was very controversial at the time.
Yeah. It's the draft. Come on. Every other day of his life now with the quarantine, he can wear a T-shirt. Get dressed up for the draft. Have a sport coat on. It's their one moment. Instead of, Jimmy Lipper drafted in the, 7th round out of Old Dominion. It's like, your commissioner couldn't even bother to put on a sport coat. He got a T-shirt on.
The one question I have for the commissioner is, before he put the T-shirt on, did he go in the basement, in the storage room, and swole up a little bit? Get a little party pump, little shoulders, little buys and tries. I guarantee he did.
He could have.
Party pump.
Yeah, I don't like the sitting in the chair thing. I don't need a fireside chat. I'm sorry. I didn't. I was like, okay, I know you're tired. Okay. But in between picks, you can sit down.
I do appreciate his commitment to the bit, though, in that in the 6th round, he was still looking at the screen going, come on, is that all that you have? Let's hear it. Jets fans, let's hear it. Is that all that you have?
Is that all that you have?
Smooth.
Whatever
He
the
turns with a smile.
Whatever the prompter said. Is that all you, like Y-O-U in capital letters, have, exclamation point?
Come on, let's hear it. Is that all that you have?
Yeah. Hand gesture. We have your draft profile.
Okay.
But you need to read it. Okay?
Okay.
Are you capable of doing this?
I mean,
you can read.
I think I can read pretty well, yeah.
These are actual reviews of Carson Wentz. Now, I took out the positives. All right? Everybody. In fact, our next guest, Drew Brees, did this, and Drew kept his negatives. He wanted to use it as motivation last year. So
who wrote this?
Paulie gathered this from NFL writers.
I have the names if you want them later when you leave.
Okay,
All
so
right.
here are your weaknesses. You go.
All right, weaknesses. Needs more consistency on anticipatory throws outside the hash. Will get caught locking in on target, bringing secondary charging in to make a play on the ball. Inconsistent footwork in the pocket. Can be a little flat with his downfield touch throws. Everyone's all over the place with that criticism. Sometimes it's too flat, sometimes it's too much art. It's like, can't please anybody. Anyway, has to eliminate nonchalant throws into tight quarters. It's football. When rolling out, will float it a little much when taking shots down the field. Allows passing windows to close quickly when he short arms his release. While his arm strength is okay, he can still make all the throws and he can make them with accuracy.
And the comparison is to Blake Bortles.
Yep.
There you go. Is there any truth in any of those things?
I mean, some. I'm not perfect by no means. I'm not perfect. There's some, but there's also some things that people just nitpick just to have something to write about. You know, that's kind of part of the business. But I mean, I'm not gonna argue with all of them. There's definitely we're all works in progress.
And you're ready to go. You got a lot of work to
I'll
work
take
to
this
do.
home and I'll study it up, and we'll be hopefully getting better reviews next year.
my God.
The play of the day.
Runner left side, got it!
They're going to play it and play it. This is the play of the day. Check this out.
Meanwhile, the pick is in for the Philadelphia Eagles. With the 53rd pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Jalen Hurts, quarterback, Oklahoma.
Courtesy ESPN, that's our play of the day. Jalen Hurts goes 53rd overall. Adam Schefter reported multiple teams are worried about their QBs getting the coronavirus, which is why the Eagles selected Jalen Hurts at that spot.
Is he somehow immune to it?
Well, that's why I was going to say, are you worried about Jalen Hurts getting it? We drafted him. He can't get it. No, he's just been with college students, for the last few months. That's courtesy of the new kid in town by the Eagles, courtesy of ESPN. Our play of the day brought to you by LegalZoom. They made it easy to set up the right estate plan without leaving your home. Take care of your family today with the right estate plan at LegalZoom.com. McLovin, would you explain that to me? That you're drafting a quarterback because is that what the Packers did? They drafted Jordan Love because they're worried that Aaron Rodgers is going to get the coronavirus?
Well, there's a lot of people have been talking about this. Say your quarterback does get the coronavirus, even if he has light symptoms, he'll have it for 2 to 5 weeks, and then he'll have to do 2 more weeks. You could lose a quarterback for 7 weeks in the prime of the season. But the thing is, you'll probably lose the whole locker room too. So that was a discussion that was happening over the weekend on Twitter with like a lot of real NFL writers.
That seems silly.
Why is that?
Well, okay, so is Jalen Hurts immune to this?
No. But you want to make sure you have a backup plan. But you're exactly right.
But what if the backup plan is my backup and he's a rookie, and then I'm worried if he gets the coronavirus, or now I'm going to put him in because my starting okay. Maybe that's the case. Maybe somebody told that to Adam Schefter, but I don't understand that philosophy. Yeah, McLeod.
And they're in the same room for months. The quarterbacks all hang out together, so there's no way that Jalen Hurts wouldn't get it. You're absolutely right.
Drew in Tampa joins us. Hi, Drew. What's on your mind today?
How we doing, Dan? First time caller, long time listener, 6 foot 205. Well, my Philadelphia Eagles on the clock, 53. Love the draft. Nice breakaway from what's going on in the real world. At 53, I got my, I got holes all over the field. O-line, little banged up. Maybe some corner help. Jalen Hurts was very surprising to me. Just giving Wentz the 4-year deal. I was just super surprised at 53 we would take a backup QB. I mean, maybe we have some plans like a Taysom Hill type deal. I just wanted to know your opinion on that pick, and did you like it or not?
I like Jalen Hurts. I was surprised that he went to Philadelphia. But I don't know if this pick is more about Carson Wentz and his playing style. He played all 16 games. He got concussed in the postseason, but maybe his style has been modified and he won't take these risks. That's always been my knock on him, that you're not at North Dakota State. You can't take these chances. And I like Jalen Hurts, but do they have other needs? Yes. I was surprised the Eagles went there. Yes, McLovin.
There was another theory that they picked him to push Carson Wentz to sort of try and make him better and give him some motivation.
Yeah, but I don't want him to be pushed with a guy who has a different style. I don't want Carson Wentz to go, oh, you think Jalen's good at doing that? Watch me run. No, I don't want Carson Wentz doing what Jalen Hurts did in college. That's part of the problem. That's how we got here in the first place. Don't like that. I got a stat of the day here. Patrick Mahomes, in his last 2 seasons at Texas Tech, threw 25 interceptions, 4th most in the FBS over those 2 seasons. He goes, no, I'm not done yet. That's not
prematurity.
Yes. He goes to Kansas City, sits 1 year behind Alex Smith, who has the 8th lowest interception rate of all time. And Mahomes turns into an MVP. No, I'm not done yet. Jordan Love, 17 interceptions last season, most in the FBS. Now he'll sit behind Aaron Rodgers, who has the lowest interception ratio of all time. A little theme there. Hit the music.
Stat of the day, stat of the day, stat of the day, stat of the day. Here comes that
what?
Stat of the day. Top
So maybe you sit behind somebody and you're going to, by proxy, get better. Jameis Winston with Drew Brees, Jordan Love with Aaron Rodgers. We saw that with Patrick Mahomes and Alex Smith. Maybe there's a theme there, but I don't see that being a smart pick for the Packers for the reasons I told you. This program brought to you by Mercedes-AMG. Be prepared for whatever comes your way. It's the all-new GT 4-door coupe, because life is a race. Visit your local dealership for a test drive today. If you missed any of our interviews from the Mercedes-AMG Man Cave, go to the Dan Patrick Show app. Watch and listen from inside the Mercedes-AMG Man Cave. Mercedes-AMG driving performance. Yes, Paul.
When the rumor was out there that Jameis Winston is signing with the Saints, a lot of people had the same joke. Well, Jameis is used to throwing the ball to Saints players, so it was too easy. But everyone had it.
Mean-spirited. He got a lot of talent, but it comes down to decision-making for me with Jameis Winston. I think he thinks he's better than what he is. I'll take less talent for somebody to be smarter, because if you have all of those interceptions, and you took away half of those interceptions with the Buccaneers, they're a playoff team. And that's where you bring in Tom Brady now. That's where Jameis Winston could learn from Tom Brady. You know, you don't want to pay him anywhere near that money that he wants. I don't know what he's going to get from the Saints, but, you know, that's a smart – I think it's a smart business decision to bring him in. He knows the division, and he can give you your scouting report, their scouting report on you, and he's played against these other teams. Not that Drew needs that, but certainly getting the Tampa Bay aspect of this. And you got a legitimate backup quarterback, and you still have Taysom Hill. Yeah, Paul.
Maybe it'll help your defense in practice. They'll get their confidence up because they'll pick them off so many times.
Wow, once again.
A motivational tool.
Mean-spirited.
No offense.
Mean spirit. Yeah, no offense. All right, McLovin, you got a poll question for me?
Yeah, I put up what was the biggest surprise of the draft weekend, and a runaway winner was the Packers taking QB and no wide receivers. The second place was that there were no major technical glitches.
Yeah, I thought that they did a really good job with it. They kept it simple, that's what you want to do. You want to keep it simple. You don't want to do, usually what happens, you try to do so much. And there's always that risk and reward. If you just go, look, it's going to be simple. Here's the camera. We'll do some interviews here. You know, you had some virtual hugs as well. I always worried that every time Tom Rinaldi came on, somebody was going to die. Like, I just go, oh, there's Tom Rinaldi. Somebody died. I didn't like the draft profile, and then they always had something tragic at the bottom. Like, I felt bad for the guy that nothing happened to him. So he's just a regular guy, like nothing, like somebody didn't steal your bike when you were 7.
So you have both parents and their health is intact?
What is wrong with you? Yes, Eaton.
Right, they even got Maria Taylor in on it. Like, every time they went to her, you knew a sibling was in trouble.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, oh, boy.
And let's go to Tom Rinaldi. No, somebody's dying.
A tragic hedge clipper accident in 1995.
Yes, McLovin.
Yeah, they had like a 43-inch broad jump on one line. The next line was like an uncle who was addicted to something.
Yes.
It made no sense.
Yes.
It was like a stat.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't need to know that much about my draft picks. I didn't. Yeah, Fritz.
Yeah, there was a lot of criticism on the graphic for T. Higgins about his mom battling alcoholism. That might have been a little too much to have to make that one of the points on a graphic.
Might have been.
No, it was.
Might have been.
Yeah, it was. Too much information. Like, you've always been around people, and then they start to tell you stories, and you go, that's way too much information. It felt like, hey, we're going to tell you everything about this draft pick. And I went, no, too much information. I don't need to know that. We can get to that point, but it felt like everybody had a bad bottom line there. Yeah, Paul.
Do you overcompensate next year? You know, Ted Smith in Nebraska runs a 4.340. Dad pays taxes early. You know, really positive, normal, bland stuff.
No. It would be Dad didn't pay taxes on the lam from the IRS. Like, okay. Are there going to be white-collar crimes that we're going to put in here?
Cuts tags off mattresses.
Ooh. I remember you could go to jail for that or get arrested. Last Dance parts 3 and 4 we'll discuss, and the hatred that still exists between the Bulls and the Pistons. Reggie Miller will join us. Peter King will join us coming up as well. Seton, Paulie, Fritzy, McLovin, yours truly here on the Dan Patrick Show. Hour 1 in the books, 2 more to go on this Monday. Dan Patrick Show. Did you ever get anything from him signed?
No. Yes, I did. I was going to say no. But I was like, hold up. Backtrack. Michael Jackson moonwalk. I did get a jersey signed.
You
Get a
did?
jersey signed. Yes.
I'm surprised that you did that.
It took everything in my fiber to ask the ball boy to go down there and get it. Yeah, it was for a charity thing.
Did he ask for one of yours?
Are you kidding me?
Wouldn't that have been great? Wouldn't that have been great if Mike says, "I'll do it if you give me one of your jerseys"?
You know what's funny? I wonder if Michael Jordan has anything signed from anyone. Like, would he ask Muhammad Ali back when Muhammad Ali was alive?
Yes.
If he would have asked Muhammad Ali for something
Yes.
signed. I'm trying to think of people.
But nobody in
of
the
that
NBA,
stature.
though. It's not like he's going to say to Larry, "Can I get a jersey?" or, Magic. Certainly
You don't
not
think He may
Isaiah.
have asked Magic maybe for a jersey.
I don't know if Mike would hang up jerseys of other people.
Not necessarily to hang up. but
Michael
just
Jordan
to-
has an autographed Jesus picture. That's how good he is.
So we're saying Muhammad Ali would probably have been the only person at the time MJ would have asked for an autograph, sports autograph.
Yeah. Maybe Tiger,
No.
because he's too much of a big brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Jack Nicklaus? Maybe?
But then if Tiger found out about it, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, he certainly wasn't asking 31 of the Indiana Pacers for anything. I can guarantee you that. But thank you, MJ, and thank you for the charity.
Wait, but was there anybody who else asked for your jersey in the NBA? And I don't mean to embarrass you if nobody did.
I don't think anyone really would.
Oh,
ask
no.
for much. Yeah, no one. No.
I have the red autographed jersey here.
That's right.
Proudly displayed.
Thank you, and I appreciate the Dan Nance, and I appreciate you guys.
But maybe that's the ultimate respect, that people just didn't like you, that they couldn't like they were you're so competitive that they would have a hard time saying, "Hey, would you give it to me?" knowing that you might say no. You're such a competitor.
My business manager, Gail D'Agostino, she said, "Look, you have to get this jersey signed by MJ. You don't understand how hard it was for me to." I wasn't going to ask personally. I was like, "There's no way I'm going to ask him." So I had to get the ball boy.
Oh no!
To go down there with the jersey and the shoes and be like, "MJ, this is for Reggie," And this was right on the border. This is maybe pre-fight or right after. It was one of that big fight I had with him. It was right after that or right before that this happened. So it was very uncomfortable. Because we really weren't on talk. We were on talking terms maybe my first 2 years, and then just fist bumps and handshakes the rest of the way.
Nice.
But it was very uncomfortable.
Reg,
but I did it, and thank you, MJ. But it was a very uncomfortable ask.
Buckle up, boys. Time to go to work.
Assumptions.
This has happened before.
At number 24, the Packers proudly step to the podium
Dan Patrick
and take the successor to Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers.
History just repeated itself.
Yeah, we haven't picked a skill player in the first round in the last 15 years, so that'd be kind of cool.
And then all of a sudden, they drop the bomb.
The Green Bay Packers select Jordan Love, quarterback, Utah State.
Well, you got your skill position player. He's called a quarterback.
The Dan Patrick Show brings you the biggest guests and best interviews.
Chris Sims, his job is to analyze the draft, and he is brutally honest.
Brett Favre was threatening to retire. This to me smells a lot like John Elway and Maddox, who they drafted out of UCLA back in the early 90s, where, I don't know if this team's going to get anything out of this pick, and some other team might bear the fruits of his talent at some point.
Broadcasting from the Mercedes Man Cave, this is Dan Patrick.
Hope you had a great weekend, everybody. Peter King will join us coming up here in a little bit, see if he agrees with some of my draft assessments here. Spent a lot of time on Jordan Love. I like that Aaron Rodgers reached out to Jordan Love. They talked. I don't know exactly how long the conversation lasted, but they did have a conversation. Look, it's not Jordan Love's fault. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, I may not like that you took Jordan Love, but that doesn't mean I won't like Jordan Love. I still don't like the draft pick. I said it in the first hour. I've got somebody here. Best case scenario is available in 3 years, assuming Aaron Rodgers doesn't get hurt. 3 years, maybe I get him. Maybe it's a fourth year, and then I got one more year left on that team-friendly rookie quarterback contract that everybody wants because that's how you build. When you bring Jared Goff in, you draft him because you want him to play right away. Carson Wentz, you draft him, you want him to play right away. Baker Mayfield, right away. Joe Burrow's going to play right away. Tua's going to have to wait a year probably, and then he's going to play. You want these quarterbacks to play right away because you want to take advantage of those contracts. You're not going to take advantage of a guy you traded up to get because, from what I'm told, the Colts wanted to take Jordan Love, and you're not going to be using him. I would have used that pick, those picks. I would have moved up to get a defensive guy. If you think that's what's keeping you from the Super Bowl is your defense, because San Francisco got better, folks. And if you're not going to take a defensive player, then take a high-end wide receiver, because there were a few of them in that draft. It's just like I go back to the Vikings. The Vikings had all of these draft picks stored up for the third day of the draft. And I went, why didn't you take those draft picks? Why not take 12, condense it to 3 really good picks with players who are going to make your team? That's what I didn't understand. You don't have roster spots available. I didn't understand that philosophy. I like what the Cowboys did a lot. I'm still not sure about the Dolphins. I love what the Browns did. Browns made some smart moves there. Cowboys, some smart moves. I like what Denver did. I'm not going to hand out grades, but mine's pass-fail. That's the way I like to take a class, is pass-fail. There's no need to get caught up in those tricky grade point averages here. All right, 877-3DP-SHOW. Email address dp@danpatrick.com. Twitter handle at DP Show. Say good morning to our radio and TV partners. You can watch on youtube.com/The Dan Patrick Show. It is free to watch. And it feels like sometimes we should be paying you to watch us. McLovin, are you changing the poll question from the first hour?
Yeah, I wanted to put up in the first hour, which do you prefer, the traditional draft or the virtual draft? Because I think virtual draft might win.
Well, why can't we have both? Like, I don't need to have one or the other.
Well, how do you combine the elements of both if they're all going to be all the first rounders are going to be in person and Goodell's going to be in person?
Well, that's the only thing I'm missing out on. The commissioner with his fireside chat when he's in a chair, I couldn't care less about that. I mean, it's nice that we're humanizing the commissioner. Look at him. He's got a T-shirt on. He wears khakis. Oh, my gosh, he's got a dog. Like, I didn't need all of those things. And if the picks aren't there, what I liked was the war rooms. That's what I thought was great, and you just take some of that. I'm fine with that. But, the commissioner in his chair, and I don't need that. And, Skippy, his dog, or Blake, his dog, whatever his dog's name is that's nice. But it's like Norman Rockwell. We're going to have this painting here. Oh, look at this. There's nothing that whatever. We can take some of this. We don't have to go either this or that. Yes, Paul.
I guess what the poll is, though, if you'd like to go an extreme direction, if you'd like to say, this mom and pop feel, if you could just organize it a little better, could this be the future and a lower cost version instead of trotting it all over the city and having gondolas? And is it Cleveland next year or Vegas? And then
Vegas.
I think
L.A.
Is it? I think it's Cleveland. Then are you sure?
I think it's L.A. because they have the new stadium.
Cleveland, L.A. I'm not sure which direction, but instead of going that slick TV look like all the years past, do more of a mom and pop version of the draft and make yourself more likable as a league. The NFL's always looking for that option. It may not be good business wise.
You have to understand the philosophy of the NFL. They want to eat everybody. They don't go, should we get Shakira for halftime or J-Lo? No, both. I mean, that's how they think. That's their philosophy. They want bells and whistles. They don't care that you go, you're a spendthrift. Hey, you should be smarter with your money. These guys want to come out, take over the city, and give that city the opportunity to bathe in money for a week or so. There's nothing frugal about the NFL because they had to do this. They didn't choose to. They had to do this. All right, 877-3DP show, email address dp@danpatrick.com. So did we change the poll question, McLovin?
Yeah.
All right.
I just put up which do you prefer? And by the way, I think Paulie's right. I think they canceled LA and moved it to Cleveland.
Okay.
Remember that headline about 6 months ago that there was a change?
So it's Cleveland, LA, Vegas.
No, it's Cleveland, Vegas, TBD. Something happened with Los Angeles. I'll look into the story.
Oh.
But I just real quickly looked it up. I'll find out what the story is.
See, we should go to the Cleveland draft and skip the Vegas draft. Be cool. Don't be like everyone else and go to Vegas to live it up. Let's go to Cleveland and tear it up.
Yeah. I'm okay being an Ohioan. Take you guys back there. Well, even though I'm from Cincinnati. You're not from Cleveland. Yes, Fritzy.
The other problem with the virtual draft is even though they tried to incorporate it in the screen behind the commissioner, was having the fans and all the team jerseys and their reactions, whether they were jumping up and down excited or making faces or crying because they hate the pick. That was a big element that was missed, even though they tried to work it in somehow, like with a Zoom thing on a TV screen.
I think that's a good point, that you missed that spontaneity in real time. And then, when the commissioner would be trying to get the crowd riled up. How did he sound, Seton?
Hey, is that all that you've got? Come on. You can do better than that. At day 3, it's like the 9th hour of the draft.
Yeah. Like we booed you already. We're not booing you again.
Is that all you've got, Jets fans? Come on, let me have it.
Let me have it.
All right. Some phone calls. We'll get to those coming up. Peter King will join us a little bit later on. Reggie Miller will stop by. Parts 3 and 4 of the Bulls documentary. Michael Jordan says he still hates the bad boys, the Detroit Pistons. I'm not surprised there. That's the beauty of Jordan, that a lot of these guys go, whatever. I'm good with it. You just move on. Mike doesn't move on. Mike will hate Isaiah and the Pistons the rest of his life, and he doesn't care. Plus, if you're Mike, you get to jab him again. You got a documentary. And that's what last night was partly about. And then you get Rodman, who was with the Pistons, who then eventually gets with the Chicago Bulls. But, the fact that they beat up Michael Jordan, not roughed up, they beat him up. And that's why but it made Jordan a better player because Jordan then went out and started lifting weights. He had, his great trainer, Tim Grover, who came in and he put muscle on and he wanted to give the punishment back. And he did. Then the Pistons didn't shake their hands when they walked off the floor. But then the Pistons said, well, the Celtics did the same thing to us. It was that was the way it was back then. You actually had players and teams that didn't like each other. Weren't friends. Respect, yes, but, it was bad blood, and nobody liked the Pistons. Outside of Detroit, nobody liked the Pistons. Even that style, you didn't like the Pistons. But, that's what made them great. They didn't care. I thought some of the interesting parts with the documentary last night was really the palace coup of getting Doug Collins out as the head coach and bringing in Phil Jackson. You had this brilliant offensive-minded guy, Tex Winter, and Doug Collins and Tex Winter, that wasn't going to work out. You had the triangle offense. You get Phil out of the CBA who comes in, and Phil says to Michael Jordan, basically, hey, all the stuff you did before, you're not doing that anymore. And Jordan's looking at this going, wait a minute. I'm leading the league in scoring. I'm putting up big numbers on people. I'm the defensive player, all of these things. And then Phil Jackson wisely said, no, we're going to build a team, and you're not going to be this one-man show. And Doug Collins was allowing Mike to do that. And Jordan said there is an I in win. So it was good. Once again, you got to see behind the curtain. The great thing about this is the video that was taken by NBA Entertainment. Without that, you don't have this. 1997, 98, and having been around the Bulls, certainly during the playoffs, you saw these cameras rolling constantly. And I kept thinking, what are they using this for? And then it never came out. And Don Sterling was the guy that I worked with at NBA Entertainment. I did some voiceover work for Don Sterling. He did a great job with NBA Entertainment. But this was basically, they say to Michael, we're going to shoot all of this, and we're not going to release it until you allow us to release this. And look how long it took for Michael to give the go-ahead to say, and the fact that he had veto power. Although I will say this, they showed Michael missing a free throw in that documentary last night.
CGI?
I'm surprised Michael didn't have that edited out. I didn't know Michael missed shots in crunch time.
I thought my TV had gone to a different channel.
Yeah, I thought it was LeBron at the line. Whoa. Yes, Bo.
One of my favorite pieces of footage was there's an infamous playoff game against the Pistons where Scottie Pippen had to tap out at a point in the game because he had a migraine. And that was a big, big deal in Chicago because when you hear someone's got a headache and they're missing a playoff game, you're like, well, come on, you can play. But Scottie Pippen was saying, I had blurry vision. I couldn't see.
Well, Kareem had migraines back when they played Philadelphia when Magic played center.
Yeah. They show right before the game, though, they're doing the huddle, and Jordan looks around and goes, where's BJ? Where's Scottie? And he doesn't know what's going on. He's not aware that Pippen's got a problem. And then they show him out on the court.
This in from Adam Schefter. Future scheduled NFL draft sites, Cleveland next year, Vegas after that, and then Kansas City after that. What happened to the Rams? Yes, McLevin.
So I read that part of the reason LA did not get one because they got the Super Bowl. So when they were building it, they were discussing, should we put the draft there or the Super Bowl? They gave them the Super Bowl and took the draft away or something. So that's where that started. But the Combine might move there too eventually.
Oh, okay. Well, I see them showcasing that stadium, but that's why I thought they'd put the draft because it's in Los Angeles.
By the way, Dan, if we go to Cleveland, I know what you have to take us to. The Green Day exhibit.
Oh, at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah.
In your lane.
Yeah. No, I know exactly where it is. And I studied the Green Day exhibit. So whenever that topic comes up on this program again, I'm going to be ready to go.
Intricacies of the track listing on Dookie.
Yes.
It's a very prominent exhibit there.
Couple of phone calls in here. Dookie. I know. Hey, man, stay in your lane. I don't need you saying negative things about Green Day. I watched Breaking the Band last night, Journey. I don't know why. I just was like, oh, Breaking the Band. Who? And they had Guns N' Roses. It was back-to-back Guns N' Roses, then Journey. And, I didn't know much about Journey, but they had some drama.
What'd you learn?
Well, Steve Perry came in, and he was never fully accepted. And, it was a band that was basically an offshoot of Santana. And then they started this, and then they got popular because of Steve Perry and his great voice. But, there was a real falling out there. Guns N' Roses was just, you had Axl, who had them sign over Guns N' Roses to him. They're on tour. All Slash wanted to do was, I think, just play and party. And here's Axl saying, I'm going to get these guys to sign over the name of the band to me. There was some real stuff going on there. And then, somebody's pancreas exploded
Sure.
not
Todd.
Yeah.
There's always an overdose or someone lost a finger or a foot. Someone's always lost a limb or someone had some kind of major drug issue.
Why? It's usually drug issues. I think you only had, who was it? Def Leppard. They lost a limb. I don't think most bands lose a limb. They basically, you either die or you have an overdose and come back. But yeah, it's Guns N' Roses. I can't imagine how you could be on the road and have that many tour stops. Like just survival, considering how they went about it. Because they went obviously pretty hard. All right, let me see. What do we have? Terry in Pennsylvania. Hi, Terry. What do you have for me today?
Hey, DP.
Hey, Terry.
5'9", 165. So about the Jalen Hurts pick, I was thinking that Eagles fans should be grateful because last year in the playoffs, Wentz takes a shot. It's not really his fault he got hurt. And Josh McCown trots out on the field. I feel like that situation happens again. They're going to feel a lot better about Jalen Hurts coming onto the field than they did with Josh McCown.
Yeah, you got an injury-prone quarterback, or at least his style leads him to be injury-prone. Because people are, saying, well, wait a minute, you got a problem with the Packers taking Jordan Love, but you don't have a problem with Jalen Hurts going to Philadelphia. No, I like Jalen Hurts. I was surprised that the Eagles took him. So just want to make sure I get my opinion straight. You got him. Does this say more about? I don't buy into this. Oh, he's going to be like Taysom Hill. That's not what I want Jalen Hurts to be. Taysom Hill does everything. He's on kickoffs. He's on punts. He's a wide receiver, and he wasn't even a great college quarterback. He's a great athlete. Jalen Hurts has quarterbacking skills. They're different. Am I going to put him in the Wildcat? Okay. I mean, you got a quarterback. You drafted somebody you don't necessarily want to use because if you do, that means Carson Wentz got hurt again. How many plays are you going to use him each game? He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Kyler Murray. It's different because those guys are the fastest guys on their team. Mike in California joins us. Hi, Mike.
Hey, what's going on, Dan? 5'11", pre-pandemic 175, post-pandemic 198. Hey, you ain't got Saints jersey yet, Dan?
No, not yet.
For Adam Troutman, you got to get your Adam Troutman jersey. They don't get many draft picks. I mean, you've been in the business I've been following you since I was a little kid watching you, and I'm old. And y'all ain't got no draft pick yet. Man, you supposed to have some clout.
Wait. Hold on. We have, the guys that went to Dayton are pretty impressive here. We don't have great football players. Now, that's, this kid out of Dayton, a tight end, got drafted by the New Orleans Saints. And he's going to make the team, and he could eventually start. But we do have some. John Gruden went there, Chuck Noll went there, and I went there. So that's still impressive there. But I'll get a Saints jersey. I just, got to get around to it, Mike. Stop yelling at me.
The Flyers, all right. Hey, about the virtual draft, they might as well have the regular draft because the great moments from the draft, Deion and Barry Sanders, Drew Bledsoe, they was at home anyway. So the virtual draft always been there. Even at the regular draft, some of the times when the top pick knew he was the guy or the top five, they stay home with their family. And you get all the great coverage of Deion. They going to have to put me on layaway. That was like virtual draft before, the internet.
Yeah, I'm just looking for that energy. And thank you, Mike. And I appreciate you growing old with me. I need the energy from the building. I like that. And I think it enhances the draft. But you can take pieces of this. I'm fine with that. It doesn't matter. I just wanted the draft. I didn't care how you gave it. It could have been over the radio. I would have been fine with it. Didn't matter. There were pockets that were fun. And I'm glad they were able to do it and be successful in doing so. All right, 19 after the hour, more phone calls. Best and worst of the weekend. We'll give you ours coming up later on this hour. We'll check in with Peter King. He'll join us next here on the Dan Patrick Show. You check your Instagram, your email. Make sure you're checking something important like your credit. Discover makes it quick and easy. Best of all, it's free. Discover is now offering free FICO credit scores. And that's used by 90% of the top lenders. And you get that even if you're not a customer. Checking your score won't hurt your credit. And you can check each month for changes there. The Discover Credit Scorecard is free for everyone, and you can learn more at discover.com/credit scorecard. That's discover.com/credit scorecard. Limitations apply. Okay, so you're with the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
You're facing the Bulls, who that year won 72 games. It's you versus Jordan.
It's so funny. Dude.
Wait, isn't that how they sold the matchup here?
Yeah, I think that's how it was billed.
Coming up
for
tonight,
radio.
Rex Chapman versus Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I think it was.
Watch Rex own Michael. So when you start going off on Michael, does he say anything?
We actually, that game, and I'd forgotten about it. Somebody showed a video of it not long ago because it was like 20 years, I guess, after the fact, and it showed. You couldn't let Michael dunk it. If it was sort of a rule. If he dunked it, crowd's going to get into it. His teammates get into it.
Wait, so that was team-wide that everybody knew if Mike goes up, you foul him.
Yeah, you got to foul him. But, preferably before he gets off the ground, not to hurt him. And he made a move baseline, and I was a help defender running through the lane with my back, and I turned and saw him coming. And, I sort of launched into him just to get him before he got off the ground. And I don't think we had the same agent forever. Michael called me to go to Carolina in 1984.
Oh, he recruited you?
Yeah. So I'd known him forever, but I think he didn't see who got him. He did, and he turned around to say something, and we kind of got nose to nose. There was no anything really said worth anything. I think I said something like, I can't just let you dunk it. And so, but it looked like yeah. And so everybody's like, oh, you were talking so much noise to Jordan. I was like, no, I was not doing that.
And then you go off for 39.
We only had 8 guys. We'd made a big trade, 8 guys available. And I think Michael and Scotty and Dennis and those guys came down to South Beach the night before. And we're like, it's a night off. But as Jimmy Lynam always used to say to us, you let a guy get going in this league and you got a problem. And I got it going one night and we got lucky.
But Jordan doesn't say anything. Like, is there just, it's your night, I'm going to let you have your night?
Now they were.
Did you beat him?
We beat him. And they were not happy. We played them a few weeks later at home. And again, Michael and I are buddies. We same agent. Ball goes up and we're around the jump circle and bang, right to my chest. Right to my chest. And I went, all right, great. Let's do it. I mean, that's the mindset you have to have. But right then and there, I knew I was not having 39 again. I think I went 4 for 14 for 14 points or something. Yeah.
Phone calls coming up. Our best and worst of the weekend as well. Got a poll question. McLovin, update the poll results before we get to Peter King.
Which did you prefer, the traditional draft or the new virtual draft? 52% say traditional, but it's really close.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Peter King, NBCSports.com, and of course his great column, Football Morning in America. Peter joins us now. Peter, what kind of elements do you think we'll take out of this virtual draft that we'll implement maybe next year in Cleveland?
Dan, I wouldn't be surprised to see the NFL still use a lot of draftees in their homes. Maybe bring fewer big stars to Cleveland, and instead of having all of the stars come to Cleveland, I think there's a really good chance that they sort of merge the two ideas. Whatever, Trevor Lawrence, chest bumping with Roger Goodell, and then maybe all the guys beyond pick 25 or whatever, you see that drama at home. Like, to me, the two things out of this draft that people will never forget is, and look, I had 5 general managers between Saturday and Sunday who, 2 of whom really did not like this, okay, entering, 2 weeks ago. Even Mickey Loomis, who didn't like it, told me that it's a memory his kids will never forget. And to have so many key NFL people have their kids draped on them when they're making the picks. I mean, it probably will never happen again, but you know what, Dan, maybe it should.
Whose team's strategy do you have a hard time wrapping your head around right now?
Well, I mean, I didn't love the Packers, but not necessarily for the Jordan Love reason. I didn't love the Packers because whatever you think of the future of Aaron Rodgers, let's leave that to the side. Dan, in the last 6, this is the second draft in a row where they didn't take a wide receiver, okay? It is the 6th draft in a row where they did not take a wide receiver in the first 3 rounds. And in all 6 of those seasons, they did not spend free agent money on a big wide receiver. So they basically are doing to Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion, what Bill Belichick did to Tom Brady last year, saying, hey, listen, you're a great player. Win it. You and Josh McDaniels, go figure it out. And, to me, this is about a franchise that, in my opinion, the game is changing. You need explosion. Look at what the Denver Broncos are doing. Look at their receiving core. It's utterly fantastic. And that is the way the game is going right now. The Kansas City Chiefs are providing a blueprint for everybody.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, trying to understand this. The reason why I don't like the Jordan Love pick more than anything is I got the financial aspect of this with Aaron Rodgers. He's tied up for 4 years, and you want that rookie contract at the quarterbacking position. All of these teams that, Wentz and Goff and Baker Mayfield, I mean, all these Daniel Jones, they're all put in there to start so they can take advantage of that contract. By the time Jordan Love gets ready to play, if he does get ready to play in Green Bay, it might be 4 years down the road. You're not able to take advantage of that rookie contract.
I think Jordan Love's got a decent chance to be the next Garoppolo. And, if you look at the way this could go, let's say Aaron Rodgers sort of views this as, just like Brett Favre did, quite honestly, as I'll show them,
Yeah.
and let's say he views it as that when he reports whenever this season is played, if it is, I think what's going to happen is you're going to see that unless Rodgers gets hurt, I think it's going to be very hard for him to come off the field in the next 3 years. I talked to GM Brian Gutekunst yesterday, and I asked him that same question. This guy, I mean, Rodgers told me a year and a half ago he wants to play till he's 40 if his legs are sound. And so that's 4 more years then. And if he plays 4 more years, how are the Packers going to be able to know whether they should exercise that 5th-year option? And I asked that to Gutekunst, and he said, if Aaron plays great for the next 4 years, essentially, and I'm paraphrasing him, that would be great for the Packers.
Yeah, but Pete, I would rather have a motivated Aaron Rodgers with some wide receivers.
Of course. Yeah, I get it. And you know what? I'll tell you what. if I take Jordan Love right there, you know what I do? I trade a lot to move up either high in the second round or even back up low in the first, even if it means next year's one. I trade a lot to get Michael Pittman or T. Higgins or whoever. You know, the Packers are a very smart personnel team. I would trust them to look at their draft board in the greatest year for wide receivers in the draft maybe ever. But I think they've got to come out of this draft with one this year.
Your favorite team in the draft?
Pardon me, that's Chuck the dog. He must hear somebody at the door, Dan. Here in Brooklyn. Chuck, my favorite team.
Yeah.
I'll say two. I'm going to give you two quick ones. Number one, San Francisco, because John Lynch gets thrown this hand grenade. Hey, by the way, Joe Staley, all-decade player, he's not playing this year. Not only does he need a defensive tackle and a wide receiver in this draft, he now needs, an offense, a left tackle. So he makes the trade for Trent Williams, and he gets Kinlaw as the defensive tackle, and they love Brandon Ayuk, so they draft him. So I really like what they did, and look, it's a little bit selfish, but I think what the Bucs did was really cool. First of all, Tampa Bay general manager Jason Light let me into his virtual draft room, and I witnessed their first round, and they chased and finally got the right tackle for Tom Brady, Tristan Wirfs. The most interesting thing about that, Dan, when I witnessed that, technology helped them do their jobs. They were not detoured from doing anything because they all weren't in the same draft room.
Yeah, I wondered about that. I felt because we had some analysts who were, they were projecting there'd be a lot of trades in the first round. And then I wondered if because of the technology, because of how the draft was a virtual draft, that would make it harder to pull off these deals. You're saying that wasn't the case with Tampa?
I don't think it was. Now, last year there were 41 trades in the draft. This year there were 33. So maybe some teams were a little spooked by it, but I can tell you that that Jason Light, the GM of the Bucs, or his personnel guys, called every team from 7 and beyond and tried to get that pick because they were all set in. They were focused in on getting a right tackle for Tom Brady, and that was Tristan Wirfs. They thought he was the best right tackle in the draft. So every time they called, it wasn't because there wasn't enough time on the clock or it was awkward or anything like that. They had plenty of time. They never came close. Now, when they finally reported the pick, there was only 45 seconds left, but so what? That's plenty of time to get a pick in.
He's Peter King, NBCSports.com, and the column is Football Morning in America. Jalen Hurts being selected says more about Carson Wentz or trying to find the next Taysom Hill?
I would say neither. I'd say neither. In my opinion, that is simply a recognition of the fact that on some teams, when you don't have a solid rock 16-game every year starter, and Carson Wentz has missed 7 games one year, 6 games the next year in 17 and 18. So he's not been a solid rock. Maybe he'll turn out to be Phil Simms. After a lot of injuries early, he becomes that solid rock guy. He isn't right now. This is about, on a team like Philadelphia, the backup quarterback. It's not the same for every team, but the backup quarterback on the Philadelphia Eagles is one of the 10 most important people on the team. That's a fact. If you don't have a good backup quarterback and your quarterback gets hurt, your season's over. So having Nick Foles was a huge boon to them in 17 and 18. He won them a Super Bowl, and they didn't have that unless you think that, untested backups, like Kyle Lauletta are going to be really good, but you don't know that. And that's why, to me, getting Hurts is a smart move for the Eagles.
When you look at camps being opened up, what has to happen between now and whatever that date is before, if the NBA comes back, is that going to help out with I know there's far more players with the NFL, but what kind of, precautions are going to have to be put in place before you can actually have teams get together?
One of the toughest things for the NFL whenever the NFL starts whether it be training camp, practice, whatever, is, are they going to feel good about taking all of these tests from somewhere when America is crying out, when the doctors and governors and mayors say, we want to do more testing? What's it going to be like if every week, every NFL team, let's just say, uses 500 tests to make sure that they can keep the train on the tracks and keep going? And that's just a wild guess. I would think that they'd have to test their players, all their players and important staff, once or twice a week at least. And so are they going to be comfortable in taking thousands of tests from training camp and into the regular season away from the larger populace?
Yeah, I think we got a long road here, certainly with that. But I could see where the quarterbacks all get together. You could have a virtual quarterback room where you could actually have these. Joe Burrow could get together with his quarterback coach or the offensive coordinator. I don't know if Andy Dalton's still in the mix there. By the way, Andy Dalton and Cam Newton now more likely to find a home with the draft being over, or are we going to have to wait until closer to the season?
I mean, there's still a problem with Cam Newton. Teams want to meet him up front, talk to him. They want to have their doctors be able to get their hands on him. So that's to me unanswerable right now. Dalton is a different story. He doesn't have an injury history, but who knows? But the one thing about your prior point, Dan, I asked Zach Taylor, because I talked to him over the weekend and I talked to Burrow. How weird will it be if let's say the season starts on October 1st, and how weird would it be if Joe Burrow meets AJ Green on Labor Day weekend? If he meets T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, if he meets all of his guys he's going to have to, sing beautiful music with. But I'll just say this, for all the people who say, well, he won't play this year, they better play Andy Dalton. I mean, maybe they will. But I will also say this. Russell Wilson, 19 days after he practiced for the first time with Wisconsin, whatever year that was, 2011, I think it was, is playing football games and winning Big Ten games for them. Cam Newton didn't have an off-season program with the Carolina Panthers, practiced for 5.5 weeks, and then threw for 400 yards in his first game. It's not impossible. All I'm saying is that it's going to be weird. And also, Dan, how about this? Joe Burrow, Ohio. Joe Burrow cannot work out at Athens High School, his high school alma mater. His dad coached at Ohio University. He can't work out there either. So he's going to have to work out at just a field, maybe even in his backyard, outside of Athens. He's going to have to find a field to throw to. And Zach Taylor, I'm not sure he was kidding. He said, hey, he might have to work with his mom and dad. Dan, I find this one of the most interesting times, maybe the most interesting time of my sports writing career, because there is so much happening that if you had told me that you were going to be watching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers first round of the draft on my iPhone from an iPad put in the room, and that's going to be the huge thing in your post-draft column. That's insane. And so that's the kind of stuff that I just find so incredibly interesting right now.
Well, there's nothing going on, but there's everything going on.
Yes, right? That's an excellent way to put it.
Pete, great to talk to you. Great column as well. Great insights. We appreciate your time. And say goodbye to Chuck for us.
All right. Hey, Chuck, Dan says goodbye.
Does he bark on cue?
No, he just barks if he hears the slightest noise.
Does Chuck do any tricks, Peter?
Yes, he begs very well. And he begs 24/7.
Yeah, but
we don't really love it here in the King household.
Yeah, but I've been to dinner with you, Pete. You do the same thing.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Peter. That's Peter King. Peter King, NBCSports.com, the Football Morning in America column. Take a break. We'll give you our best and worst of the weekend and more phone calls coming up right after this. were wondering this, that you could really mess people up on draft day. If you wanted to.
Okay, so it sounds like a setup for a bit, but this is true. And I didn't talk to you about this at all. This is no setup. So I'm calling Steve Keim or texting Steve Keim audio messages before. So I'm before the draft, about 4 hours before the draft, because once the draft got close, I didn't hear from him for hours.
All right, so the GM of the Cardinals.
So I'm sending Steve Keim messages from John Gruden. I'll tell you what, man. I love you, brother. I got an idea. How about you draft somebody else at number 1? And how about you draft Joey Bosa at number 1? And then I'll draft Kyler Murray at number 4. We'll make a trade. I'll give you my 27th pick. You give me a second rounder. We have the best trade ever, man. I think it works out for both teams. So then he got that, and then he sent it on to some other people. I called him up as Jay Glazer, too. I was like, you're not going to believe this. I just heard there's unbelievable stuff going on. And you can't do Jay Glazer without swearing every 5 seconds. There's F this, F that. Steve, you got to go. And then Schefter, I called as Schefter. And as Schefter, I'm like, listen, I hear you're talking to both Ian Rappaport and Jay Glazer, and I just wanted you to know my phone is on, and if you ever need to talk to me, I'll be here wherever I am, in a chair, sitting perfectly upright and prepared. And then Steve sent that on to Schefter, and then Schefter texts me, look what I got from Steve Keim. What are you doing? So Schefter, who always says, I just don't hear myself when you're talking is me. I'm not sure if it's right.
But I think most people react that way, don't they?
Some do. It's funny how close some voices are, because Schefter with a cold is Ian Rappaport. It's weird. I don't know why, but they're the same guy. If you have that cadence, you become an NFL insider, unless you're Jay Glazer. And Jay Glazer's like, you want to work out? Let's work out. Good night. I'm on my way to work out. You know what I'm going to do on my way to work out? I'm going to work out. Double workout. Do you think I could play Ram Man and He-Man the movie? Do you think I could do that? I'm not even sure if I have a neck. I'm sure.
I don't know if many people are doing Ian Rappaport, though. I mean, it's very niche.
Yeah, if you think Adam Schefter's niche, then
no, Shefty though is people know Shefty.
It's the Simpsons world. That's what this. I've pigeonholed myself at this point. I'm actually doing Adam Schefter while trying not to do it. I've actually pigeonholed myself in a lot of ways into doing all these sports impressions that are so niche. Like nobody outside of the sports world knows Mel Kiper Jr. You know, the whole ta. And here's every time I see McShay, he's like, you've ruined my life. I'm like, why? Because all I hear is Todd. They didn't know your name before I did that. You were the other guy with Count Chocula.
But my audience, the sports audience, eats this.
Absolutely, yeah. People get it. It's I do some weird ones too. Like I go to just to mess Rich Eisen show up. Who's a good friend, right?
Yeah.
So I can mention that.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'll just go on and do Steve Mariucci hands. That's the whole thing. Is do the mooch hands. He's just hey, look at my headphones are coming off. You got to take a look over here. We're going out that way, and I'm real life Chris Farley back in it. I just.
Yeah, you're messing things up here.
That's
in
all
the
right.
man cave.
Yeah. All right, we're back.
Steve Keim is joining us. Your good friend, the Arizona Cardinals GM.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, how we doing, guys?
How did you put up with Frank on draft day? At least prior to the draft, with all these prank phone calls.
He turned his phone off.
Well, I mean, is this really Dan or is this Frank?
Well, it could be Dan and Jim Rome asking you questions.
How great is this? Probably the best show that's don't talk over me, Steve. You maybe.
Dan, it was torture. I felt like I did 3 or 4 trades with the Raiders, and I had to call Mike Mayock and realize it wasn't really them.
How long have you guys known each other?
How long, Frank?
Probably 6-7 years, something like that. Because Lance Zierlein out of Houston, who works NFL Network, and so his dad was coaching with. He was a line coach for the Cardinals, and he was on a plane. And he says, I text Lance. I go, is this your dad? And a picture of him. He's like, yeah. So I ended up getting to meet Steve through that. And the Cardinals facility is on the same street I live on. It's just 3 blocks down, with like 3 miles or something like that. I came in and just met with Steve, and it kicked off. It was a lot of fun. It was incredible. And he's always like, do you know how many people know you? I'm like, I'm a big deal, man.
Yeah, but you're also a Packer fan, aren't you?
Well, Steve has lured me. I'm going to be a huge Kyler Murray fan. Absolutely huge. I'm getting way on board. I'll always be a Packer fan, somewhat, but because I grew up there. But here's the thing. I like being friends with an NFL GM, so I'm going to be a huge Kyler Murray fan.
Friend just emailed me and he said, I know you like Aaron Rodgers, but maybe that's clouding your vision here of what the Packers are really saying. So I said, question mark? His completion percentage last season was the second lowest of his career. His quarterback rating was the lowest of his career. But when you start to look, I had snot come out of my nose because here's the thing. The lowest of his career. The worst of his career is the best of a lot of people's careers. I get that's the lowest quarterback rating. His quarterback rating is 95. That was the lowest of his career. All right, I got it. I still think Aaron Rodgers is going to play at a high level for 3 more years. If you can justify Jordan Love by telling me in 5 years he'll be an all-pro quarterback, good. Go get him. Because you're trying to win now with what you're going to have for how many years are you going to have Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre combined in Green Bay? And you're going to have 2 Super Bowl wins to show for it. Is that successful? In my opinion, it's not. I got 2 of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. 2 guys that'll be in the top 10. And you got 2 Super Bowl wins. That, to me, is not good enough. And I know that we look at Aaron Rodgers and you say, hey, go out. You're the greatest quarterback of all time. Hey, most talented. Hey, make it work. Well, after a while, you go, all right, I'll try to make it work. Did you make it work on the defensive side of things? Because last I looked, the Niners were never stopped in that NFC title game. So I can look at Aaron Rodgers and say, Aaron, go out there. You're your best quarterback. Go do it. But if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm saying, all right, you're not going to get me a wide receiver in the last, 7 years? In the first 3 rounds, that's impossible. It's not like the Bulls go to Michael Jordan. Hey, you go out there. Hey, why don't you win championships here? They said, Mike, you're not going to be the player you once were. We're going to go out and build a team around you. That's why Michael Jordan's the greatest player of all time. If Michael has 1 title or 2 titles, he's nowhere near the greatest player of all time. The reason why we recognize greatness is you win. That's it. You win. Joe Montana, not the best athlete, a statistical phenomenon. None of that stuff. He won 4 Super Bowls, went 4-0. That's it. Dan Marino, more talented than Joe Montana, in my opinion. Okay? Joe Montana went 4-0 in the Super Bowl. That's why he's considered on the short list of greatest quarterbacks of all time. Is he better than Dan Marino? Not in my opinion. If you look at John Elway, when he didn't win, then we held that against him. And then he won a couple that really, he wasn't the main guy. And then he got credit because he had a lot of help there. When you win, we recognize greatness. That's what it comes down to. Do you want to share and be great and win championships, or be like James Harden? I hope James Harden is watching the Bulls documentary. I hope he looks at that and says, maybe this style is not going to win me anything, because it's not. And I wonder if he looks at this and sees what Jordan was doing those first couple of years, and then Jordan realized, I can be great, but I'll never be the greatest. He won those titles. That's why he's the greatest of all time. Best and worst of the weekend. McLovin, I'll start with you.
Okay, best, I'm going way back here, but there was a layup where Michael Jordan had in the documentary last night where against the Knicks, where he did a 360 in there, threw it over his head and got fouled. It was 25 years ago. Worse is the Redskins finally trade Trent Williams now. Why did they do this 2 years ago? What is going on with that franchise? They got a third and a fifth. I don't get it.
That was an absolute steal. There should be a wanted poster of John Lynch of the 49ers because he stole from the Redskins. I was told they were getting a first-round draft pick. I was told that Thursday morning they were going to get a first-round draft pick for Trent Williams. And all of a sudden you got that. And everybody knew you had to replace Joe Staley. And they still got it. Amazing. Seton O'Connor, best and worst.
My best of the weekend also goes back to the Bulls documentary from last night, but it's about a 20-second clip where they have Phil Jackson explaining the triangle offense, and then they show from an overhead camera looking down the Bulls running it and just sort of the way everybody was moving. And like, I've always had a general idea of what the triangle offense was, but I never really knew like to that level. But watching them actually execute it from that level and that detail, and they're drawing the triangle and here's your options and all of that was really fascinating. And it was quick. It was a really quick clip, but super interesting. My worst of the weekend is Jake Fromm dropping. Dang-a-lang.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Yeah. Georgia keeps him. Jacob Eason transfers. Justin Fields transfers. They get, Fromm gets drafted higher, and then Fields will be a first-round draft pick next year. And, Fromm there at Georgia beats out those guys. And he was an by the way, latch on to somebody. Yeah, I was surprised at that. Paulie.
Such a Patriot draft, best of the weekend. They got a guy from Lenore Ryan with the second early in the second round, and then a kicker late in the draft. My single favorite draft was the Bills. They took a running back, Zach Moss, out of Utah in the middle of the third round. That's exactly where you want to take a running back. I think he's going to rush for 1,000 yards and lead all rookies next year. Yeah, hot. But he's a really good running back. That's it.
He makes people miss.
And he attacks some people.
He makes people miss. As he went, that team went. Fritzy, best and worst.
My best, hoping it's safe effects occur from this, but the NBA opening up team practice may in states with relaxed stay-at-home orders. My worst of the weekend, during the 6th round of the draft, Michigan offensive lineman John Runyon Jr. accidentally hangs up on the Packers. They were going to let him know they were selecting him. I thought that was fantastic.
I think he was mad that they took Jordan Love, and that's not fair to Aaron Rodgers, I think. Everything goes back to him. Evan in Ohio. Hi, Evan. What do you have for me?
Hey, Dan. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Hey, hear me out on what I'm about to proffer. I'm not the oracle.
Make it quick. Make it quick, Evan. Make it quick.
Yes, sir. Listen, I think that the Patriots want they want Andy Dalton. I think I wouldn't sleep on the Bengals keeping him, possibly restructuring his contract, and maybe redshirting Dalton for half the year or the entire year.
I don't know what he's going to cost me if I keep him, but if I can keep Andy Dalton for a year with Joe Burrow, I wouldn't keep him because the Patriots want him. I'm not sold that the Patriots, they said that they went through the draft, didn't take a quarterback. That wasn't by design. I'm going to guess that they're going to still look at Andy Dalton or Cam Newton. I would. Yeah, Paulie.
If I'm the Bengals, Andy Dalton for Julian Edelman straight up. Bring him back to Ohio, finish his career. Hot.
Do the Buccaneers offer a second-round pick next year and bring in Edelman? I don't know if they have a second-round pick, but you might as well be all in on this. You're bringing in Gronk, you got Tom, you bring in Edelman. Not that they need another wide receiver. Final hour coming up. Reggie Miller will stop by, get his thoughts on part 3 and part 4 of the Bulls documentary. Did Reggie hate the Pistons as much as Jordan hated the Pistons? Final hour coming up. Dan Patrick Show. How often were you lied to by teams leading up to the draft?
Oh, a fair amount. And
do you take it
and
personally?
I remember. Yeah. I mean, if he's there, we'll take him, that kind of thing. And then it doesn't happen, and then it's the mealy mouth. Listen, Aaron Rodgers, my biggest draft story ever, sitting there watching him fall, we found out later from him, there were teams that told him, if you're there, we'll take you. And then all those teams passed, and then we, the best player in football fell in our lap.
Why did they? So you're in the war room there. Why do you think Aaron Rodgers dropped?
I don't, it's something we talked about Josh Rosen this year. Was there something turning people off about Aaron's, his confidence, his kind of California cool, his wry sense of humor, all the things we like, and the fact that it's the position. This is not like this year's NFL draft. You didn't have that many teams that were like, we got to have a quarterback. So once Alex Smith went, everybody's like, well, more need-based. And even our decision, like, should we dip into our second-round grades, because Aaron was the only first-round grade left, and take a corner and take a linebacker, whatever we needed. And our coaches certainly wanted that, because they don't want a first-round pick that's not going to help us with the most durable quarterback in history on our roster. But, it's trust the board. It's
but who
the best player.
broke the news to Favre that you were taking Aaron Rodgers?
I got the call from Bus.
His agent.
The agent. Yeah, I didn't talk to Brett. And I told Bus what I tell everyone is, listen, we trust the board. He's the best player on the board. At some point, Brett's not going to be here. I mean, listen, we traded quarterbacks all those years, the Hasselbacks and Aaron Brookses, because we realized they're never going to play. But with Aaron, it was obviously different.
Oh, man, I would pay to hear that phone conversation between you two.
I don't know who talked to Brett, probably Mike Sherman, our coach.
But just it had to be a little bit awkward as Favre's agents calling saying, what are you doing? Now, why aren't you getting him, somebody who could play a tackle or an offensive lineman? You're drafting his successor.
Same thing, you tell the coaches, like, coaches are judged, and P.S., that coaching staff was fired that year, and we brought in Mike McCarthy, but it's tough. You general managers, I was management, you're forward-focused, and coaches are all about the immediate and players.
One other thing, I see, and I don't know if you see this, but, the personality traits or quirks, I see Josh Rosen, I see a little bit of Aaron Rodgers in there as well.
Yeah.
Is that apt comparison?
Yeah, and me personally, I think it's a positive. Now,
I did too.
I think some people say, well, we want our quarterback to be a football guy. And I'm like, really? Really? I mean, you want a balance. To me, the most successful people in life are balanced and can focus when they need to. And he seems to have kind of this off-the-charts intelligence and ability to not take things too seriously, totally like Aaron. And I saw a video of them together. They share the same agent. I like them. And it's just, to me, it's the other part of this, Dan, quickly, is that Sam Bradford, once again, wins the business of football while he's a placeholder, second time in 3 years, for Wentz 2 years ago.
Pretty good.
And now he's a placeholder, and Rod Rosen will be in there soon enough.
Buckle up, boys. Time to go to work. This has happened before.
At number 24, the Packers proudly step to the podium
Dan Patrick.
and take the successor to Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers.
History just repeated itself.
Yeah, we haven't picked a skill player in the first round in the last 15 years, so that'd be kind of cool.
And then all of a sudden, they drop the
The
bomb.
Green Bay Packers select Jordan Love, quarterback, Utah State.
Well, you got your skill position player. He's called a quarterback.
The Dan Patrick Show brings you the biggest guests and best interviews.
Chris Sims, his job is to analyze the draft, and he is brutally honest.
Brett Favre was threatening to retire. This to me smells a lot like John Elway and Maddox, who they drafted out of UCLA back in the early 90s, where, I don't know if this team's going to get anything out of this pick, and some other team might bear the fruits of his talent at some point.
Broadcasting from the Mercedes Man Cave, this is Dan Patrick.
Welcome to the program. It's final hour on this Monday. Hope you had a good weekend, a safe weekend. Gang's all here, ready to go. I think everybody's in pretty good spirits. McLovin, not sure if you love your Eagles draft. Fritzy had a good draft for the Broncos. Seaton's a Patriot fan. I don't know if you're happy with that. Fritzy, the Chicago Bears got another tight end. Exactly what the Chicago Bears needed. Yes, McLovin.
My phone was unbelievable. Philly fans were so mad, Dan, because of the Hurts pick. They want to leave the team.
Well, okay, which draft pick is worse? That the Eagles took Jalen Hurts or that the Packers, took Jordan Love?
I mean, the Love pick is way more controversial.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because it's earlier.
Yeah, I'm okay with Jalen Hurts just because of Carson Wentz. I'm not sure about Carson Wentz as we move forward. That's all. And you have a team that's still good. I know you have holes. Every team has holes. But if you're looking at this, the last couple of years with Carson Wentz getting injured, he got concussed last year in the playoffs. Are you sold on Nate Sudfeld? And if you were, then you wouldn't take Jalen Hurts. You got a value pick there. I was hoping Jalen Hurts would land someplace else where he'd have an opportunity to start in the next 2 years. But I have a problem with Jordan Love with that trade, just because I don't think it helps you immediately. And if you're trying to win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, this does not help you win a Super Bowl. Update the poll results there, McLovin. Reggie Miller will join us coming up in the final hour.
Did you like the traditional draft or the new virtual draft more? 57% say the traditional draft.
It should be more. This was a novelty, and there's a recency bias with that. I get that, but this was a novelty. If this was the way it's going to be as we move forward, we'd sort of get tired of seeing the setups that these guys have in their homes. It was nice to give us a little peek into Belichick's life or Vrabel's life or Cliff Kingsbury. That seemed like an awful big house for just one person with Cliff Kingsbury. I'm going to guess that he's not the only person in that house. I'm just guessing. Yes, Heaton.
It was actually just a 2-bed, 2-bathroom, but still 20,000 square feet. The rooms are just massive.
We got a winner on Fritzy's scoreboard, which is something he does every morning. It's 34 and 44, the numbers. And David in D.C. is the big winner. Fritzy, you want to give us a hint?
I would love to. The clue is heat and cold.
Heat and cold. Not hot and cold.
Nope, heat and cold.
Heat and cold.
Talk about the heat. Well, the heat.
And the heat.
They're both, I'll also throw in that they're both jersey numbers. But
I was going to go Shaq.
Heat will refer to someone that throws very hard.
Oh, Nolan Ryan.
1983, Nolan Ryan became, on this date in history in 83, becomes the strikeout king, passing Walter Johnson 3,509. Obviously, Nolan Ryan wears number 34.
All right. And number 44 is the cold.
Cold, and it's a nickname in what I think I would believe is your favorite sport, cold.
But 44 is the nickname?
44 is the number. Cold clue has to do with his nickname.
Oh, okay. Ice Gervin.
1952, George Gervin was born on this date in
God.
Detroit, Michigan. He wore number 44. Nolan Ryan's your heat. George Gervin is your cold.
Those are really hard clues.
Someone got it, though, so it couldn't have been that hard.
I know, but nobody knows that unless you don't know that face value.
Nolan Ryan and George Gervin.
All righty. Thank you, Todd.
34 and 40.
Hey, look, I ask you to come up with tougher ones because I'd walk in and I would look at the numbers and I would say, oh, it's that and that. And you'd go, how did you know that? I go, is that what it is? And you go, yes. Then I
those
would
were
say,
two guys that are on the show that day, and that's their jersey numbers or something lame like that was when I was
yes.
first doing this.
And now you put in a little more time into it, and you're making it tough. So I asked for that. Yeah. You're doing some research there. Well done, Tom.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. What else have we gone over here? We talked about the draft. NBA allowing facilities to open up May 1st. The Saints signed Taysom Hill. They're going to sign Jameis Winston. NFL draft gets all-time TV ratings. Yeah. I mean, it was the only thing on. And then you had the Bulls documentary last night. Matt in South Carolina. Hey, Matt, best and worst of the weekend.
Hey, what's up, DP? Worst of the weekend. I'm only 25, so I didn't live through like the bad boys of that era. But watching that, it reminded me like anyone who's ever played pickup basketball has played with people like that are like not skilled enough to really do anything, so they just hack you every time you drive the lane.
Yeah.
It was frustrating because it doesn't really seem like real basketball. Best of the weekend, Mr. Paulie Papp's Twitter feed all weekend long for the draft. Like Thursday at 4 p.m., he tweeted out, like, I'm 2 drafts in, and I immediately turned on post notifications because I knew he was going to be on fire. I just imagine he's just bundled up in 48-degree weather, 2 flannels on, and the only time he got up was just to head to the kegerator he keeps on the back patio. It was great.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt. Here's Michael Jordan responding to the director of the documentary talking about Isaiah Thomas walking off the court. This is after the Pistons lost to the Bulls in the playoffs. The Bulls finally got over the hump, beating the Pistons, and the Pistons did not wait to shake the Bulls' hands.
Well, I know it's all bull. Whatever he says now, you know it wasn't his true actions then. You know, it's time enough to think about it. Or the reaction of the public that's kind of changed his perspective of it. You can show me anything you want. There's no way you can convince me he wasn't that.
Mike hasn't let this go. He also talked about the Bulls shaking hands when they lost.
All you got to do is you go back to us losing in Game 7. I shook everybody's hand. 2 years in a row, we shook their hands when they beat us. There was a certain respect to the game that we paid to them. That's sportsmanship, no matter how much it hurts. And believe me, it hurt. But they didn't have to shake our hands. We knew we whipped their ass already. We gotten past them. And that was to me, that was better than, in some ways winning a championship.
Bill Laimbeer had the idea when they're sitting on the bench as the game is winding down. He's the one that says, let's just walk off and not shake their hands. Here's Isaiah Thomas about shaking the hands of the Chicago Bulls.
Knowing what we know now and the aftermath of what took place, I think all of us would have stopped and said, hey, congratulate, like they do now. Hey, congratulate, love you, man, love you. Hey, congratulate you. I mean, we would have did it. Of course we would have done it. But during that period of time, that's just not how it was passed. When you lost, you left the floor. That was it.
Okay, wait a minute. He would do it now, knowing what he knows now. What does he know now?
That it'd still be a topic for 3 decades.
Yeah, but like what is...
And it would cost him a spot on the Olympic team.
Okay, that's the reason why he should have shaken Michael's hand.
Which there's no doubt it did.
Yeah, but you can't go knowing what we know now, that's the dynasty and Jordan's the greatest player of all time and we should have treated them with more respect. I loved it. I know it's about, shaking hands and good sportsmanship. But in that moment, you don't have to make any apologies. Like Michael Jordan wasn't trying to be liked. He wanted you to respect him. You didn't have to like him. And the Pistons didn't care either. They didn't care if you liked him or not. So knowing what you know now, I would hope you'd say, I still wouldn't shake his hand. Because that's how intense it was. That's what made it so great. It was powerful. Now, what is it, bad basketball and what they allowed the Pistons to get away with? The New York Knicks back then and what they allowed them to get away with? Yes, it was. At times, it was embarrassing for the NBA. You had no fluidity. You had guys who were able to stay in the league, and all they did is punish you. You had the Bruise brothers, Jeff Ruland and Rick Mahorn. I mean, Rulin had talent. Mulhorn was there to just be a tough guy, a bodyguard. Charles Oakley, the same way. That's why Michael loved Charles Oakley. Oakley was going to go into battle for him. He was going to take somebody on if he had to. But back then, when you watched it, if he went to the hole, your job was to put him on his butt. And you can hear that in the documentary. Brendan Malone, the assistant coach for the Pistons, if Mike went to the hoop, he was going down. That's it. Before he gets up, make sure he doesn't get up. And that is jump in the air. But, I mean, it was physical, extremely physical. Nowadays, we have flagrant ones and flagrant twos. And back then, there was a regular season foul and a playoff foul. And they roughed up Michael. And it made Michael a better player, but Michael never forgot. But that's what made him so great. He was taking any slight, any grudge, he could hold it. And if he could use that as fuel, he was going to do that. But look, Mike could be petty. The fact that Chuck Daly was the coach of the Pistons on the Olympic team, the dream team, Michael and Magic somehow convinced them that Isaiah's not going to be on this team. And Magic and Isaiah were supposed to be best of buddies. They'd kiss before games. And then you had Bird with the issues with Isaiah and Rodman in the playoff game when they said if he was a black player, he'd be just another player. The Pistons rubbed you the wrong way, but they did it brilliantly. They would be called trolls now. They would troll the NBA. Whether you liked it or not. Lane Beer wasn't a great college player. I think got drafted by the Cavs. He was basically, just a big guy who he kind of threw away any basketball career. He wasn't dedicated to it. And then all of a sudden, Bill Laimbeer became a very smart, good basketball player. He had a role. They had Joe Dumars, who came out of a small school. They found Dennis Rodman. John Sally came there. James Edwards came there. Vinnie Johnson came there. They built a team, a true team, and really an underrated team. Because if you think Rodman was special with the Bulls, he was spectacular with the Pistons. He was unbelievable. He would guard the best guy. You wanted him on Worthy? He's on Worthy. You want him on Bird? He's on Bird. He wasn't afraid of anybody. He ran all day. He was a better all-around player. He jumped, rebounds, defense, and that was a great team. Vinnie Johnson, what a great nickname, the microwave. The Pistons were great. I don't want any apologies from the Pistons. They don't need to apologize for a damn thing they did because that's what made you great. And Jordan doesn't need to apologize because that's what made you great. You didn't want anybody to come up and say, "Hey, awesome, man, you were great." They gave you the respect by walking off the court and not saying anything to you. That's when you know you're in their head. God, I would have taken a victory lap. If somebody is so mad that they're not going to say congratulations, man, I'm in your head. I got you. Got you. Yeah, Paul.
The one thing I did want in the documentary, maybe it'll come out at some point, but last night I wanted to know from Michael Jordan, yes or no, did you tell Chuck Daly that you didn't want Isaiah Thomas on the Dream Team? You verbally say it to Chuck Daly. Put it to bed forever because everyone knows he did.
Why would he? Well, I don't know if Michael wants to sort of have revisionist history here and we look at him differently. Do we think worse of him if he would be that petty and say to Chuck Daly, if he had the power and he didn't want to play with Isaiah, okay, fine. There was such a grudge. This isn't some little game or like a pseudo feud here. This was real. Like you thought every time they played in the postseason, a fight could break out. The tension between those two teams, tangible, man. And somebody who's older, I miss that. I miss that it means so much. It's going to hurt. I'll carry this for 30 years. God, I love that. You say something to Bird right now, and he's going to take you back to some moment and go, it still hurts. I haven't gotten over it. I love that. Now, because sometimes I feel like today's players, how invested are they? Like, how important is winning to them? How important is it? And back then it was. Not life and death, but it's pretty damn near close where you felt that. So we'll talk to Reggie about the Pistons back then. I don't know if Reg caught the brunt of the Pistons. They obviously had the Malice at the Palace. Yeah, Paul.
Did you see the clip last night of Reggie? I think Reggie's going to be in a good mood today.
Well, he broke Mike's ankles.
He crossed him up.
I know. In fact, somebody sent me, I've had a few people who sent me the email. They're like, it's a quick clip. I'm trying to find good video of it, but it was a nice crossover by Reggie. Yeah, he sprains Mike's ankles here. I loved it. Yeah, I'm watching it again. I mean, it's not like Iverson when he did that to Mike twice. That's still, if you're Iverson, you show that. I would carry that on my phone. Like if I called somebody, that would be the video that came up of me, not my face. It would be crossing over Jordan twice. They'd be like, it's AI again. The answer's calling me again. Here's the video again. God, that's great video, though. Yeah. All right. Got our poll question. Phone calls are welcome if you'd like. Best and worst of the weekend. What you saw that you liked and didn't like over the weekend. Let me get to Christian in Utah, then we'll take a break.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, Chris.
Second-time caller. Thanks for taking my call.
What's on your mind?
So my best of the weekend was I saw 7 Utah Utes drafted. That was tied for fourth most. So I thought Kyle Whittingham put some good players in the NFL this weekend. I'm kind of excited to see where they go.
He's a good coach, man. Good coach. Yeah, you're lucky. And I love Moss, too. But I got to run here, Chris. I got Reggie calling in. We'll take a break. More phone calls coming up. Best and worst of the weekend. Back after this. Did you play against Jordan when he was with the Wizards?
Yeah, I played against MJ when he first came back for the Wizards. I was in Boston at that time.
And what happened? What happened?
Man, we beat him, but I was kind of starstruck the whole game because I had to guard him. I had to guard him, and him and Paul Pierce was talking junk back and forth the whole game. I'm thinking to myself, Paul, just kind of chill out. I'm the one out here got a guard. But as a rookie, man, I enjoyed that moment, and I still watch that to this day.
What do you remember about that? Here you are, a rookie with the Celtics, and Mike comes to town. Granted, he's with the Wizards, and Pierce, who's not guarding him, is giving him
right.
back and forth. But what do you remember most about that?
I remember. Man, I just remember trying to play well. That was it. I remember it being a TNT game, and I just wanted to play well against him. I knew I wasn't going to be able to stop him, or I wasn't smart enough. I knew he was very crafty at his age. I think he's probably 38. But, man, he was great. I think he probably had about, 27, 28 points.
And you probably thought you did a good job on him, right?
I thought I did a fairly decent job. We got the win. That's what matters.
Who was the comedian coming up that you just went, wow, when you were younger?
Oh, when I was younger, who was the guy that blew my mind? Well, when I was younger, who I thought was amazing was Bill. We're gone. See, yeah, ask me any questions. By the way, I'll tell you about the Chicago Bears all you want. Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks,
oh, yeah.
I thought was like, wow. I actually saw him do a set in Chicago where he was bombing harder from the beginning than anyone I'd ever seen, and he dug himself out of it to kill harder than anyone I've ever seen. It was amazing.
He didn't purposely dig the hole to get out.
No. He was just in a hole, and he just kept going, and he was brilliant, truly brilliant. Also, Sam Kinison. I worked with Sam Kinison before he became famous, and I remember watching him, and I hung out with him. We went out every night.
Oh, boy.
He offered me tons of cocaine. I'm not kidding. Every night, like, he did tons of cocaine. I didn't do it. I was 20 years old. But when I say he was offering cocaine, he was doing it. But he was the most lovely man. He was so supportive. And watching him on stage, one of two things happened. It was either he killed bigger than anyone I'd ever seen, ever, or it was like someone pulled a fire alarm. That's how quickly. It wasn't even like that he bombed. People left that quickly.
They were offended?
They were offended. Like, literally, if the room full of 300 people would be like 80 people in a matter of 10 minutes. Yep.
But did he want that?
No, we wanted acceptance. All of us want acceptance. But the great ones don't care. Like, in other words, you do what you do, and either people dig it or they don't. You don't try and get them to dig you. You know?
But Andy Kaufman didn't care what you thought of him.
Yeah, but I don't either. No comedian that I respect cares what you think. They want you to dig it. Andy Kaufman, I'm sure sometimes designed it, and he's one of my all-time favorites, designed it to where I'm going to do everything I can to get everyone to leave the room or hate me. But that was just sort of more performance art type things. But in terms of when Andy Kaufman was doing something that he thought was funny, like legitimately funny, he didn't care what you thought, but he hoped you dug it.
Who makes you laugh harder, Seinfeld or Larry David?
Larry David, in terms of laughing harder.
Yeah.
But Jerry Seinfeld's one of my heroes and one of the greatest.
Who's funnier off stage, off camera?
Are you doing Seinfeld and Larry David again?
Yeah.
Larry David.
Okay, I'm just
why are
asking.
you doing this to me? Jerry's going to go, what, I'm not funny? You know, you want the funniest people off stage that there are?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Amy Sedaris.
Yes.
It makes me laugh so hard I cry. Conan O'Brien. Mitch Hurwitz, created Arrested Development. Crazy funny. Those are some of the funniest people.
And you and Conan roomed.
We were roommates in Chicago, yeah.
How did that go?
Right by Wrigley Field. Not good for him. For me, it was great because he made me laugh so hard, and I used to wake him up at like 3 a.m. and make him do bits that I'm not kidding. I go, tell me that thing you did again. And he go, and also his room had no air conditioning. I remember that real quick because, he threw out his mattress when he moved out.
I was trying to find out when Reggie Miller becomes a larger part of the documentary on the Bulls, what episode it is. And I think it's episode 8 or 9. But, Reg has been featured a little bit. He had a nice crossover move on Jordan last night. But they might get into that rivalry, that relationship a little bit later on. But Reg has been nice enough to watch. I don't think it's cathartic. I don't think it's therapeutic. But Reg has been nice to watch the first 4 episodes. How are you feeling today as opposed to last Monday when I talked to you?
The juices continue to flow. I think last night's 2 episodes really took me back to the center of 90s, really late 80s and early 90s basketball because the feelings, and you could see the raw emotion on MJ's face in talking about Isaiah and the Bad Boys and the Pistons. For those people who didn't understand that, he's correct. Back then, you played, especially in your division, you played each other 6 times, 3 at home, 3 on the road. So you built up a lot of disdain and dislike towards certain teams. And Detroit was one of those teams. But I will say this, and I know looking at the videos and the images of taking him out the air, a lot of teams were like that. The Knicks were like that. Miami was like that. Milwaukee was like that. The Celtics were like that. There was a lot of teams that played a very physical presence, especially in the Eastern Conference, because we only played the Eastern Conference teams twice. But especially in the East,
that was the brand of basketball. But you could see on his face that MJ is still living with it. And I agree with him because, we had to face him 6 times and go against that bad boy defense. But you couldn't be a punk. You couldn't be a punk. And I remember, going against, Dumars. And
what do you mean, punk? You not back down?
Not back down, and you couldn't just settle. See, they wanted you to settle. They didn't think you could. Were you up for the punishment? So Joe would tell me, because he was like the gentle guy on that team. And we guarded one another, and he's like, Reg, I'm just telling you, if you beat me and you get into the paint, you know what's going to happen. Well, I know what's going to happen. What do you want me to do? Sit out here and just continue to shoot? I just couldn't sit out here and shoot jump shots. So you had to take the punishment. That's just how it was, right? You couldn't be a punk. You had to get in there and take it. So what? You get up and, you move on.
That style, though, like the Pistons
didn't. It was ugly.
Yeah. But the Pistons didn't care if you liked them or not. Like, they wanted you to be. If I'm a Piston now, if I'm Isaiah Bill Laimbeer, I like that Michael Jordan's still mad.
Yes.
I mean, that's why you were playing. You wanted to rent space in somebody's head. But then you turn around and you go, did Michael rent space in their heads too? Because then you walk off the floor and you're not even going to acknowledge Jordan. You're just feeding the beast if you do that. Like, I'd rather be nice with Mike than if I'm gonna tug on Superman's cape. It ain't going well. It's not going to go well from this point on.
Well, if you're Laimbeer, Mahorn, Isaiah, to a certain degree, job well done, because you're absolutely right. They did not care at the time, and they're right. It was Larry, it was Magic, the next was Michael, and all those 3 teams that I just mentioned played a beautiful brand of basketball. You had Showtime, Fast Break, the beautiful passes by Magic, and the finishes by Worthy and Kareem, and you had the beautiful, stroke of Larry Legend, and they played well as a team in the championships. And you had Michael, who was, 5 to 6 feet above everyone else, floating on air. And then you had the bad boys, right, who didn't care, who played a physical style of basketball. But guess what? It worked. And that model and brand went to New York for Pat Riley. It went to Miami with Pat Riley. So that brand of basketball was around for a while. There was a niche for it, and teams tried to adopt that. And now you see in today's games how they have gone away from that, and everything is more so catered towards the offense now. They would much rather see you score 115, 120, 125 points as opposed to the Pistons brand of basketball when it was 80 to 75, right?
Oh, it was so bad. Do you think that Michael single-handedly said, I don't want Isaiah on the Dream Team?
Yes. And I know, look, let me just say this. Isaiah Thomas should have been on that 92 Dream Team. And people are going to say, well, what do you have taken off? John Stockton, Clyde Drexler, one of those 2 guys, Christian Laettner, one of those 3 guys. Isaiah Thomas should have been on that team because of what he had done in the league, his stature. He had won 2 championships. He should have been on that team.
Do you know for a fact that Mike was the reason why Isaiah didn't make the Dream Team?
I wouldn't say for a fact, but I think that is the unwritten rule that people talk about.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's MJ alone.
But how did Mike get this past Chuck Daly, who was Isaiah's coach, who coached the Dream Team? That's what I don't understand. Where
it has nothing to do with Chuck Daly, because at the time this was Commissioner Stern putting this team together.
But do you think the commissioner said? Do you think he said, "Mike, I want you on the Dream Team," and Mike said to the commissioner, "I will, but these are the guys I want. This is the guy I don't want."
No, I wouldn't say he said, "These are the guys I want." I believe MJ probably said, "Okay, I'll do it," but Isaiah cannot be on this team. He didn't make the roster, but he made sure someone wasn't on the roster.
But what bothers people or bothered people about Isaiah Thomas?
because you know he's so cute, the smile, cute little teddy bear. He was little in stature, but he was. You talk about the bad boys. He might have been the meanest and toughest of the bad boys, but you didn't think about that because of the smile.
Yeah.
And he had won, a championship at IU under Bobby Knight, and he formed that team. He formed them into that tough, take him out the air. But it was Lambier and Mahorn and Buddha and Rodman and John Sally. They took all the hits, because they were the bad boys. But Isaiah was he was conducting all of that behind the scenes.
Talking to Reggie Miller, the Hall of Famer, Turner Sports NBA analyst. I try to tell people how great Rodman was with the Pistons. And I just, when he was with the Bulls, he became a little more one-dimensional where he was just rebounding. He wasn't the great defender he was in Detroit. He took pride in guarding Bird or James Worthy, and he just was a pogo stick. He just ran all day. But can you imagine a coach who says to his player, you can go to Vegas for a couple of days in season?
Yeah.
And they gave him his blessings to go there so he could shack up with Carmen Electra in Vegas.
Look, what you see from that image in the videos, that could not be done today because of camera phones, smartphones, because of social media. If you look at the footage, there are no cameras going off. People aren't holding cell phones up when he's on stage and his shirt is off. You could do those. I mean, it's a human GPS nowadays, your phone. So you could track everyone's movement. That could not happen in today's era because of social media. But, I go to tell people, think about if you're Phil Jackson and the Bulls, you have arguably three of the best on-ball perimeter defenders in the game on one team, MJ, Scotty, and Dennis. So if those guys played in today's games where you switch everything, every pick and roll, that's like lockdown city. And I try to tell people but he didn't score. Like, what did he do well? He did, minus the scoring, the rebounding, the positioning, and all the toughness. I don't think I've told this story before. When Mike was filming Space Jam, they built the Jordan Dome for him so he could work out. And he would film all day, 6 o'clock call time, and he would be done like around 6 p.m., 7 o'clock. And then we would go up and actually, it was the best runs ever. So they called it the Jordan Dome, and all the top ballers came up on the Warner Brothers lot.
Invitation only?
Somewhat invitation. I mean, Michael didn't say who he wanted, but it was all the top players. So you had, Eddie Jones at the time, Juwan Howard. Guys, I believe Magic came through once or twice, but it was unbelievable. No riffraff, but it was nothing. Hard fouls. And this is at the time where they were thinking about signing Rodman. And my good friend and my teammate at UCLA, Jack Haley, who had been Rodman's babysitter in San Antonio and then in Chicago, it was close to them signing him. And other than MJ, during those runs, Rodman, I had played against him, obviously, when he was in Detroit and San Antonio, was phenomenal. And usually in pickup games, Dan, you know this, it's all about scoring and, Ole defense. So what was he going to bring in a pickup game? Phenomenal. And the little exercise that he did last night about tracking the rebounds, and he could tell the arcs and the rotations, it's absolutely 100% true. The instincts that dude had was unbelievable.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy. Just can't imagine if you imagine somebody nowadays going, hey, can I go to Vegas for, remember when Johnny Manziel, they had a weekend off and he went to Vegas? People went crazy over that. But with Dennis, I think Phil's genius is he knew how to treat everybody as an individual. A lot of coaches treat everybody collectively. And I think Phil was able to look at you individually and say, this is what you need. That's different from what he needs.
And another fascinating look, what's great about this doc is the in-game adjustments that the great players make. The interaction that MJ had with Rodman about, a particular switch when Oak is coming behind me. The great ones know how to adapt on the fly because everyone has a game plan coming into a game. And then, like Mike Tyson said, once you get punched in the mouth, you got to be able to adapt. Those guys were able to adapt on the fly to any situation. And just to hear the talking, that's what I missed probably the most in watching this thing, because it's those minor adjustments as teammates and as brothers that you make that makes the difference between being a champion and being a runner-up. And that is what's fascinating to see.
I know we get into this discussion. It's like who's the greatest of all time, and then we go back and forth with that. But when you start to look at great teams, we look at it's really the generation in which they played in. The Celtics of the 60s wouldn't come anywhere near a team now. The Bulls in the 90s, though, it feels like they could play physical if they had to. They could run if they needed to. They could play great defense if they needed to. They would have adapted to become better three-point shooters because the game would have called for that. And if I took Golden State with Durant and Steph and Clay and put them back in the 90s, so if I do it the other way around, I put Jordan's Bulls, now against Golden State, and I take Golden State now and put them back with the Bulls, how do you think that fares?
I think the Bulls would have been unbelievable in today's generation because we just mentioned about them being able to switch everything, which they do in today's game, and you have three of the best on-ball perimeter defenders.
Would they beat Golden State with Durant?
Yes.
The 7-game series.
Here's my thing. If you put that Golden State team in the 90s, the question is going to be because back then you could hold, you could hit, you saw the physical play.
Yeah.
Is Steph going to be able to hold up to that? Right? KD, I believe, could. Durant, yes. Possibly Clay. Is Steph. Now, I know Steph would be able to adapt because we all would have to, but you get to hold back then. You get to be in the clinches. You get to take people out the air. Is he able to take that punishment? Could you imagine if LeBron and KD took that punishment that MJ and a lot of us had to take in the 90s? I just wonder how they would I would love to see that. Because now that's a flagrant foul and possibly a 5-game suspension.
Well, but you wouldn't be expecting those calls. It's if I say LeBron is the same size as Karl Malone with a better handle, so Karl could handle it. I'm looking at LeBron. If he doesn't know, hey, wait a minute, I'm supposed to get those calls, or they would give me those calls in another era. If he knows only what he's playing, I think LeBron would be great in any era.
LeBron could have played 60 in any era.
Yeah.
LeBron in any era.
Yeah.
Some players you're wondering, could they play in any era?
But would you take
KD could play in any era.
If I took Kobe and Shaq versus the Golden State Warriors with Durant?
That's an unbelievable matchup because no one had an answer for Shaq. In those first three championships, no one had an answer for Shaq. I don't know what Chicago would have done.
But if I put
Kobe,
them against Golden State,
Kobe and MJ, that would have been I still give the edge to MJ, but Kobe would have kept him honest.
And you got Pippen, who's going to match with him. You got Rodman. What if I put Shaq and Kobe versus Golden State with Durant, Steph, Clay?
Okay, now what are you playing in today's rules or
today's rules?
2000 rules?
Today's rules.
You don't have a people. Shaq was a beast. Man, you didn't have an answer for that dude, man.
What, you don't think JaVale McGee is going to be able to stop him?
No.
But you think that Shaq, Kobe versus the Bulls, they would give them a better run than the Golden State Warriors with Durant, Steph, and Clay?
I do.
Because of Shaq. And Kobe is going to go, him and Mike are going to go, maybe not toe-to-toe, but it's going to be pretty close.
He would keep them honest.
Yes, both ends of the floor. Hey,
would
before I
keep
let
them
you go, NBA talking about opening up camps here May 1st, opening up facilities. What do you think? What kind of time frame are we looking at?
Well, if they open up practice facilities, that means guys can go in and actually get workouts in. It's probably going to take most players anywhere from 2.5 to 3 weeks to get in some type of shape. I mean, I think you're looking at mid-June again. If you're going to resume basketball, we're talking about mid-June to late June of getting NBA basketball back. Again, with no fans, though.
Yeah, I don't see that happening, but shouldn't you already be in shape? How out of shape can you be?
Be in shape? How would they be in shape? They've been at home. What, on a treadmill?
Well, there's home gyms.
That's not basketball shape.
Well, it's not
there's a difference.
They're not going to have a beer gut.
No, but conditioning is going to take a while. To get your legs back, it's going to take a while.
Do you believe that Steph Curry doesn't have a basketball hoop at his house?
I believe he does not have a basketball hoop at his house.
Isn't that amazing?
No, most players don't have an indoor court.
Well, no, but even an outdoor. You got it. Do you have an outdoor court?
I do.
Okay.
But shooting outdoors and doing drills outdoors is a lot different than doing drills indoor.
Who's the second best shooter in your neighborhood?
I would say Paul Pierce is around here somewhere. I would say Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce is around here somewhere.
I
would say no. I would say Paul George. Paul George.
Okay.
Paul George.
So I would be the third best shooter if I lived in the neighborhood.
You would be the third best shooter in Calabasas.
Thank you.
Come to Calabasas High, baby.
The tough courts of Calabasas High.
Oh, it's tough out here, man. The mean street of Calabasas. It's tough out here.
All right, we're going to check in with you when your episode. Is your episode 8 or 9? Do you know?
It's one of those two, from what I've been hearing.
All right, find out from our good friend Gail when you get featured here in the documentary.
Again, I have no idea how they I'm just telling y'all now, I have no idea how they frame this, nor do I care, like what he said about Isaiah being a a-hole.
Yeah.
I might be in that same vein, so I apologize. I'm really a nice guy, but
not on the court. Not on the court.
I was only doing my job.
I know you were. That's why you became a Hall of Famer. All right, Reg. Thanks, bud. Talk to you soon.
Y'all the best.
All right, that's Reggie Aloysius Miller. Episode 9, I'm being told. Reg is on episode 9. Do you look forward to that? Because you don't know what Michael's going to say about you. Reg only knows what he was asked about. You don't know what Jordan's going to say about you. Well, it can't be as bad as Isaiah. We'll take a break. Last call for phone calls. We'll close up shop. What's in store tomorrow right after this? The Office episode you stop to watch. Whenever it's on, you stop to watch. Is there one?
Any episode. I love that
There's not
show.
one where you go, like we love Kevin with the chili.
Okay, great one.
Like
I think Dinner Party is probably one of the all-time greatest.
Small TV.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that little plasma screen and just the tension, you can cut it with a knife. It was also one of the most fun episodes to shoot. Lots of fond memories. But there's if I happen to catch an episode on TV, I will sit and watch it because we did so many that they all run together in my memory.
I think there are 163 episodes,
something like that.
If that sounds right.
Yeah, and
but could you contribute to dialogue?
Oh yeah, I mean as either through improv or
because you did improv.
Yeah, we improved, especially in the talking head segments. Those were where we really, I think, just really played around and did tons of takes. Some of the group scenes, there'd be great improv, but it wasn't as improv-y as some of the movies that I've worked on.
But they wanted, the feel is that you're just talking off the top of your head when you do the talking head segment.
Well, hopefully, because we're actors.
Yes, of course you are.
Trying to portray that.
Yeah. How hard was it to keep a straight face
on The Office?
Yeah.
I was a disaster of just breaking all the time. Steve Carell he just slays me. There's something in his eyes. I don't know. I had to, a lot of times if I was doing a scene with Steve, I would have to look at his chin because I couldn't look him in the eyes. It was just, I would lose it. There's an episode where he plays Santa and he's being an office Santa, and I think Phyllis or Kevin is sitting in his lap, and he's so awful about it because it's uncomfortable for him, and he's just being really rude and weird and mean about it. And I had to duck behind a plant. You can see in the actual episode in the background. And by the way, that was like take 30 because I had been laughing in every single take. He's a genius. There's so much funny memories on that.
Yeah, it was great. Everybody seems to have a Michael Jordan story, Juwan. So what's your Michael Jordan story?
My Michael Jordan story, you talk about serving. Michael was doing that for me. Back in 1996, MJ, no, actually it was 95, the summer of 95, MJ had the Space Jam movie that he was shooting up in L.A., and they built a dome for him. So Tim Grover was his trainer at the time, and Tim was leaving Chicago, and I was training with Tim. This was going to be my second summer of training with Tim Grover, because I had hired his services. And so he told me, he said, well, I'm leaving for L.A. for the summer to go work with Michael. And I was like, oh, wow, you are? And I'm thinking, like, who am I going to have to work with me? I need to get better. And so Tim didn't offer the invite, but I said, you know what? I'm going to L.A. So I picked up my bags, moved to L.A. for the summer, and my plan was to stay in a hotel at something like an Embassy Suites or something that's very inexpensive, but I knew I would pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I knew I probably didn't have the money to pay for the hotel for the entire summer, but I was going to give it a try. The first day I traveled to L.A., I got to the gym, and MJ had heard that I was going to be there. He was looking forward to, me working out with him and stuff like that. And so he offered to give me a room in his house that he was staying at. And I'm like, no, I don't want to impose on you. He's like, no, you know what? My wife is leaving. I have plenty of room. There's extra room. You can stay with us. He said, I just appreciate the fact that you have flew all the way here to come work out. So I was like, you sure? I was like, you know what? I better go ahead and take this offer before he changes his mind.
How big was the house you guys were staying in?
Oh, wow. The house had to be about over 10,000 square feet. And like somewhere like Mulholland Drive.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful view. But, that was just so, nice and, kind for MJ to do that. And, I would never, ever forget that. I got a chance to work out with him the entire summer. And
yeah, but then he goes out and puts 40 on you the next season, probably, doesn't he?
Well, of course. I think it was like 55, in the playoffs. But MJ is that type of guy. I mean, he'll give you the shirt off his back. But when it comes time when you lace up on the court and, you're standing side by side and you're on the opposite team, you better believe he's going to do whatever it takes to win.
Last call for phone calls. What we learned this day in sports history. All of that coming up. Talk to the Blazers' C.J. McCollum. He'll join us on the program tomorrow. Getting closer to going to these facilities, and then what's the next step out of that for the NBA? Do we have basketball by mid-June, late June? appears to be the sort of timetable for this. Final results of the poll question, McLovin.
Do you like the traditional draft or the virtual draft? 62% said the traditional draft.
All right. Paulie has something left over from the draft.
Yeah, I forgot this the other day. Reese did a great job. Trey Wingo did a great job. But this line I heard the other day at the draft, like, did I hear this right? Trey Wingo's talking about a really good defensive lineman for Auburn. Here's what he said.
Served in the Army and the National Guard and is now working with the local police department. And he said, I'm a man who starts what he finishes, and that's why he came back for his senior year.
Starts what he finishes. So wait, am I hearing this wrong? Did I get the phrase wrong? Finish what he starts.
It's all right.
Yeah, I know. That was it.
Trey was on a roll. He starts what he finishes.
Yeah. Full steam of head.
Didn't Reg have that, a full steam of head?
Yeah, someone was taking one to the hoop, and he goes, he has a full steam of head.
Yes, he does. Yes, don't we all? All right, let me see. Mike in Florida. Hey, Mike, what do you have for me today?
Hey, Dan Patrick. How's it going, man?
Good.
Good. So, my best of the weekend is kind of a tie. I mean, obviously, Niner fan, I thought that they had a phenomenal draft. The way John Lynch moved up and around the board to get Trent Williams after Joe Staley retired was huge.
Yep.
And to address needs with the first picks in the first round were awesome. They didn't need much because, Super Bowl team, they kept pretty much everyone, just getting some replacements for the people that left. But I thought with Fritzy's clue of heat and cold, I don't know if you guys had a chance to listen to the Aaron Gordon diss track that he put out over the weekend. Still a little hurt about, not winning the slam dunk championship. And it's pretty good.
Yeah, I heard that he goes after Dwayne Wade on this. But thank you, Mike. I just heard about it. We'll drop it tomorrow. Maybe I'll get C.J. McCollum to listen to it and tell me what he thinks of Aaron Gordon's diss track over the slam dunk competition. This day in sports history, Paulie?
Fritzy had it. Nolan Ryan of the Astros broke 3,500 strikeouts, 3,509 this year, day in 1983. And in 1947, it was Babe Ruth Day was celebrated at Yankee Stadium. He passed away a year later.
Go around the room what we learned on the program. Fritzy, I'll start with you.
You think it's a very good move by the Saints to add Mr. Jameis Winston to the roster?
Yeah, I do. I think why not bring him in and see? He's got talent. He just doesn't have judgment. And if you can help him with that, it's the same thing that Jordan Love is going to learn from Aaron Rodgers. You're going to have him come in, and you're going to have him understand. Aaron Rodgers, nobody's better at interception to touchdown ratios in the history of the sport. Why not learn from him? Drew Brees is one of the great ones as well. I think it would be really smart to be able to learn from those two. McLovin, what did you learn today?
Guest appearance by Peter King's dog, Chuck.
Yep. Yep. By the way, chat row, come up with a T-shirt. I told you, well, you guys have, let's get 5 T-shirts there and let us look at it and see which ones we can produce. But we'll make T-shirts for you that'll be available for the chat row. But let's narrow it down. Mario is looking at this. Also, Tyler, the moderator, is helping as well with the chat row. Seton O'Connor, what did you learn today?
I learned the Pistons shouldn't apologize for anything.
No. This is who you are. It's like Michael didn't apologize. Michael got inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. He was not humble. It was a roast. He roasted Hall of Famers. You don't have to apologize. That's who you are. That's who you were. That's who the Pistons are. Isaiah can smile all day long, but he was a killer. He was a great player. Do not apologize. Paulie, what did you learn?
Did Michael Jordan keep Isaiah Thomas out the dream team? Reggie Miller didn't hem and haw. He said, yes.
Yep. But that's probably where he says to David Stern, we're going to have professionals. We're going to have this team together. Do you want to be a part of it? Yes. Here's my list of people I don't want on the team. There's only one name. It's just Isaiah. I didn't even put his last name. Isaiah Ryder? No, Isaiah Thomas. I don't know if Isaiah Ryder was in the league. What we learned brought to you by LegalZoom. They made it easy to set up the right estate plan without leaving your home. Take care of your family today with the right estate plan at LegalZoom.com. Thanks for joining us. We'll do it again tomorrow. Be safe. Be smart. Talk to you then.